Call a meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order on this Monday, November the 2nd.
Please hold on a minute. We're not recording or anything yet. I told you we're having some technical difficulties. If you hold on for a second, thank you.
The remote. I'm trying to get this set up so they can see it.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to call a meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals to order on this Monday, November the 2nd. Let the record show we have in attendance Marlene Barnes, Tim Donovan, and Alana Faith, along with Carol Johnson. Liz, will you please read the preamble?
Thank you. This is Liz Kukla. I'm the Secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm going to read the preamble this morning. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law under COVID-19 emergency declaration, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting have the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or the facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube for public view. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter.
And thank you very much. Please call a roll.
Barnes.
Is here.
Ms. Barnes?
Ms. Barnes is here.
Thank you. Ms. Faith? I'm present. Thank you. Mr. Donovan?
Here. Here.
And Mrs. Johnson?
Yes, here. Do we have any postponements or withdrawal?
No, we do not.
Okay.
No, Madam Chair, we have no postponement.
Calendar 20-158 at 897 East 105th. Miss Faith?
Are we doing these individually?
Eric Wilkinson is on the line from AAA Construction and Development.
Thank you.
Ms. Faith, you're muted.
So sorry. Madam Chair, I believe we'll be hearing calendar number 20-158, 20-159, 20-160, and 20-161 together for the addresses at 158, 897 East 105th, calendar number 20-160 at 905 East 105th, calendar number 20-161 at 907 East 105th, and calendar number 159 at 903 East 105th. Thank you.
Okay,
These all include variances for established use of a beauty salon in a local retail business district, a use of a retail store in a C2 local retail business district, again, the beauty salon, and then finally office space in a C2 local business district with regard to all regarding parking and non-conforming use of the building. Thank you.
thank you very much. Tim?
Everyone for this case, please raise your right hand. I'm going to make a statement at the end. I'm looking for a response that says, I do, with your name. Ready? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, Terrence Wilkinson.
Next. Anyone else? City planning? No one?
Oh, okay. History of the property, please, Mrs. Kukla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All of these parcels were located in a general retail business district originally in 1929. In 1981, the zoning was changed to local retail. I found in my records room research that in 1924, a permit was issued to erect a stores, apartment, and shop building, 2 stories tall. There are no variances on file, and I only found in the more recent history that in 2006, a permit was issued to repair fire damage to a 2-story mixed-use building. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. The legal standard will be judging the cases on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The appellant is requesting area variances from the off-street parking requirements in the zoning code. To obtain the area variances, the appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. Who is going to be the spokesperson for AAA Construction?
Terrence Wilkinson.
Okay, Mr. Wilkinson, tell us exactly what they'd like to do.
We basically want to obtain the variance in order to obtain occupancy permits for the businesses. We have a letter of support from the office of Councilman Kevin Conwell. We have worked with the city as well as the police department in renovating that area and surveillancing that area. Actually, you see we've done storefront renovations on the entire building. We've worked with community development as well as the area CDC. And we're just requesting on the behalf of Councilman asking that the zoning would permit this this request so that the businesses can continue.
There is no
economic viability. I'm sorry.
There is no parking for any part of this building?
There is no, it's off-street parking, but also we're working with the city as well to obtain additional parking. However, at this time, there is off-street parking at this time.
Okay. Are there two beauty salons? I got one for 905 and one for 897.
One had been there. Wow, Miss at 905. She was friends of my grandparents, and I think she died. She was 91 years old, and she was there as long as I can remember. My grandparents grew up in that area, as well as my parents, as well as myself. So 905 has been a beauty salon over in excess probably of 60, probably longer than that, at least 60 to 70 years.
Well, you also have applied for a beauty salon at 897 East 105th.
Hello?
Oh, Mr. Wilkinson? Liz, am I crazy or what?
No, Madam Chair, that's what the notice of nonconformance stated from Building and Housing.
So that looks like it's both ends of the building practically. Are going to be beauty salons?
No, there's an office and a retail store proposed.
Well, it says use as a beauty salon and on both of them.
Yes, it does.
Thank you very much,
Correct.
Maurice. Mr. Wilkinson, are you still with me?
I just got back on. I lost my audio. I'm fine. I'm back. I don't know what happened. I was talking about the beauty salon that I lost audio.
Is there a second floor use in this building?
Currently, the second floor is under construction. We're going to begin the construction of the second floor for renovations. We've already did the exterior. We've done new roofs, new windows. All commercial storefronts have been renovated. And that was in conjunction and partnership with community development.
And is that going to be like an apartment use or something?
Yes, those will be apartment use, and we're working, the councilman and the community development organization is working to help us to obtain additional parking in the front and the rear on the side of the building, as well as the rear of the building. Also, we have surveillance systems throughout, and I'm working with the commander of that district in regards to crime in that area, as well as other property that we have adjacent in regards to some of the violence and issues that are coming. I've worked with the city in times past with, used to be Commander, now Chief McGrath in another region, so we have done
He's
that.
retired now.
Yeah.
Mike McGrath is retired.
He was commander back when we did, we've done numerous storefront renovations, so we're working now with the task force in regards to helping to alleviate some of the crime in that area, and the council is aware of that.
Mr. Wilkinson, I asked a question, Mr. Wilkinson. I'm still waiting for an answer. Are there two beauty shops going in here? One at 897 and one at 905?
Yes, ma'am. I think that's when I lost the audio. 905 has been existing for many years. 897 is the newer one, and I believe that's not only a beauty salon, but more like a spa beauty salon, well, I guess they call it a beauty salon. Yes.
And I'm sure I find this approach very confusing and I think a little bit, shall we say, not complete, given the information that we're hearing right now. Things like the fact that there'll be apartment units. Those obviously also need parking. So we're going to be, trying to look at a four-party agreement here for variances, which probably is only one party that should be getting the variances no matter what, the property owner. I'm just finding it very confusing.
I'm with you, Tim. I don't think this is ready for our hearing.
That would be my guess.
Apartments has not been utilized in many years, so that is not, in order for the business to operate, we're not dealing with anything in regards to the.
How would you like us to make a ruling that prohibits the apartments because there's no parking given for them?
That's fine. That gives the businesses their occupancy. If I need to come back at another time for in regards to apartments, because that's some time off. I have no objection to that, but I don't want to hinder the businesses from obtaining their occupancy permits, because that could be several years from now.
Maurice, are you representing the city of Cleveland?
I am.
Okay, could you tell me what your
Well, I guess the first thing that I'm thinking is the trash. If there's going to be a trash area, which it seems to be indicated in the photos that I took in the rear of the building, that would need to be appropriately screened. There would have to be an enclosure around it. It wasn't cited by Building and Housing because it wasn't listed on the plan, but if it does exist, it can exist in the form that it's in down there. With respect to the rest of the project, this is a really good project. You know, they're taking what has been an abandoned building, they've renovated it, they've done a nice job. You know, they're bringing it back, and they've got all these new retail businesses going in here. I have been told that Mr. Wilkinson has been working very diligently with the city to get this project done, and as you know, the councilman supports it. I agree. I would hate to hold up the retail stores because of the potential for apartment use down the road here. Is there a way that we could approve this? Well, first of all, they're not asking for apartments right now at all. That's not as part of this request. So could you potentially approve the retail and then specifically require them to come back for the apartments, because they would need parking for that? I can't imagine you'd want to grant a variance for that much parking.
The same owner is getting 4 variances requests there, right?
Correct.
Why not one variance request? Because it's based on one piece of property. That's what I don't get right away. It doesn't change anything other than the fact that we have 4 separate requests going to the same owner, to the same property.
According to Shannon, because all 4 businesses need separate occupancy permits. City planning doesn't determine how the applications come in. Mr. Riccardi, can you speak to that?
Don't chat me, Riccardi.
We have to wait for him to type his response.
I know.
Okay, so it was adjudicated that way because they submitted 4 separate applications.
But it didn't have to be adjudicated that way. It could have just been bundled as one application that asked for a retail use on,
We were
retail
instructed
uses.
to do it that way. If we had known, we would have. That would have been much easier and also less expensive. So the city got more, 4 different fees as opposed to 1. And we were instructed that way to do it.
I mean, usually the question we'd be asking on this request, 3 of the 4 retail uses are identified. The 4th one I don't think is, right? Anybody hear that, or?
Yeah, one is for office, I believe, Mr. Donovan, you're correct. The other 3 are retail.
Yeah, I'm presuming the office is probably the person owning the property. It's their office. AA Construction or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, whatever you guys want to do.
So Maurice, the city is okaying this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the city supports this project.
Supports it. Any other questions?
There is ample on-street parking in the area.
Okay, is this extra building on the back of the main building? It looks like a garage there with those dumpsters. Was that, when you went out and took the pictures, Maurice, was that a garage?
It looks to be a garage, yes.
Okay. Is
Mr.
that going to stay or is that going to be torn down?
That
Mr.
would be-
That
Wilson?
would stay.
Okay.
That's attached to the building.
So there are some parking spaces.
I'm sorry.
Are there any parking spaces included
The
on your
front,
property?
which feet, it's the entire length of the, or 3/4 of the rear of the building.
Did somebody calculate and put out parking spaces there or not? Or the answer is no, there's no parking with this.
There's no There's no off-street parking that I can tell with this application, correct?
Okay, and how many do they need to qualify? In other words, if I'm giving a variance, how many parking spaces am I giving a variance for that we're saying around the street?
Looks to be 8.
Okay.
Right,
Excuse me, 10.
10.
10, yeah, 10. Apparently I can't add this morning.
All right.
And that does not include the employees, that only includes people who they're servicing?
That's their parking requirement.
Okay. Aye.
So it would be a variance for 10 spaces. And having been out in that area taking the photographs, there's a lot of on-street parking in that area. I would ask Mr. Wilkinson, you said that you were working with the city to establish more parking. Could you be a little bit more, give us some more details on that?
We have several lots that are in the land bank, and we will be obtaining those lots for additional parking.
And could you
To the-
indicate on the aerial here, which was it the ones that are immediately around your building?
If you're looking directly in front of the building, to the left of the building, I believe it's in the state, and also in the rear of the building. So one would be on 100, I believe a couple lots on East 105th, as well as a couple lots on Gooding.
And you already own an area behind the building on Gooding, so it would be an expansion of that rear area?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So they're going to have to
Madam
come
Chair,
back.
this is Liz.
Yes.
I just would like to confirm that those parcels behind them are city-owned parcels, just for the record.
Correct.
And I have been, Madam Chair, I have been told that Mr. Wilkinson has been working with the land bank program.
Okay. Okay.
And again, we do have a letter from Councilman Conwell. I'm not sure if Mr. Rulins has it as part of this PowerPoint, but we did receive a letter from Councilman Conwell.
That was already displayed.
Yeah, but Maurice already put up. All right, board, any other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I believe there's on-street parking on both sides of that street. Is that correct, Mr. Rowlands?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for the time being, there should be adequate on-street parking.
Correct.
So I move that we go ahead and approve this. It has approval of the council person. The appellant has been working diligently with the local CDC. He's already gone through storefront renovation with economic development, and it has approval of city planning. It's a variance for 10 parking spaces that what we're looking at right now, and there is ample street parking at this particular point in time. So for 2158, 2159, 2160, and 2161, I move that we go ahead and approve this variance.
Second.
Call the roll.
Ms. Bates? I'm sorry, Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yeah, she said yes.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan?
Yes.
Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Calendar 20-158 through 161 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
The zoning committee, I appreciate your help and your support and helping to continue to revitalize the city and our partnership and our hard work in making this project happen. And as we continue in that area to do things and partner with the city. So I thank you for your help.
Thank you. Calendar 20-164. Ms. Faith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-164 at 1006 Creekview Drive. Monique Graves, owner, proposes to erect a 22-foot by 20-foot, one-story frame detached gable garage in an A1 one-family residential district. The owner appeals for the strict relief of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wagner? No, Tim, I'm sorry.
Will everyone
ahead.
for this case, please raise your right hand. I'm going to make a statement at the end of it. I'm looking for a response that says, I do, with your name. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Speak up, please.
Is there anyone here for this case? Monique, are you here? Hello?
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
You need-
Okay, now we
you
can.
Speak up, yeah.
Say I do and give us your name.
I do. Monique Graves.
All right.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anybody from city planning, et cetera? No one else? Okay, we move on.
Okey doke. History of the property, please, Mrs. Kukla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In the records room, I found a permit was issued in 1951 to erect a concrete block attached garage. There are no variances on file. And in the more recent history, I found a permit was issued in 2000 to erect 48 linear feet of 6-foot-high wooden fence. Also in 2000, a permit was issued to erect a one-story foyer addition to the existing single-family dwelling. And then in 2015, a permit was issued to install 98 linear feet of 6-foot-tall vinyl fencing with gate. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wagner, the legal standard.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the garage placement regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you. Good morning, Monique.
Good morning.
Why is the garage not in the rear half of the property?
The rear
What?
is towards the middle. My yard really go to the side. The back is like a patio, a little small patio. So my yard actually go to the side. And I did want to do an extension dining room probably later on down the line. So that's why I took the garage that way. But my yard actually go to the side, not the back.
Madam Chair, the applicant submitted a video as their presentation. Would you like me to play that now?
Please.
Okay, here we go. We'll see how this goes. Are you seeing that?
Yes. This garage is not in the same place the original was, correct? Yeah, the hill.
And that's all we have.
Okay. Maurice, as I'm looking at this overview, to the right, is that where the hill is?
Correct. Let me hold
Okay.
on 1 second. I can highlight for you the area in question.
Where did
So the
photo
garage,
go?
The garage is going right over here where you can see the red pointer. Well, actually, it's already partially constructed, but it goes right here off to the side, right next to these arborvitaes.
Okay,
And the hill, I think, goes down back in here.
okay.
And there is an existing garage right here. There's a single car garage right here. And then their garage goes here.
Are they taking down the single car?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the applicant, but I don't believe
Okay,
so.
Monique,
Yes.
are you gonna take down the garage you have?
It's attached to the house, but if I decide to add on, I may have to. I just haven't gotten that far yet.
I can't hear her. I don't know about anybody else.
You really need to speak up, ma'am.
Can you hear me? I think this allows it may go. It went down for some reason. I'm gonna leave it attached unless I decide to add another section onto my house. 'Cause I don't
She's
have
leaving it attached.
Yeah, okay.
There's a closet?
This
Madam
garage
Chair,
is,
this is Liz.
yes.
Sorry, jumping in, we did receive a letter of support from Councilman Polensek.
Really?
Whoa.
What's the creek in the backyard? What's the name of the creek? Did anybody hear that?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not Euclid Creek, is it?
I think it is Euclid Creek.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is Euclid Creek.
Has there been any interaction, given the fact that there's been some significant dollars put along that tributary now in terms of trying to control things like flooding, this, that, and the other?
No.
Oh,
Does your drainage in your new garage is there a drainage plan that takes any excess water and puts it into the sewer system, or how does that work?
Monique,
Going straight down the hill.
Oh, you took right down the hill into the creek, right?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. I think this may need a little bit more scrutiny to it.
Question would be to
Is this
Go
in
Mr.
the setback?
Riccardi.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Liz. I think that would be a question to Mr. Riccardi. Is drainage considered when we're erecting a new garage?
Or does the city of Cleveland protect their tributaries?
You know, a few years ago, there was a riparian code section that was enacted, I believe, and that would be another question for Rick. Is that part of the review on the garage as well, the impact on the waterway?
Mr. Riccardi typed yes, but not for zoning. This is not in the riparian setback area.
okay.
Is this in the front setback area?
For the house?
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm.
I don't believe so. It's not written up for that.
It's a confusing little bugger. Anybody else have any questions?
Right, I'm looking at the plan, and does her property really go that far?
Evidently.
Yeah, 239 feet all the way back, so she must go down into the hill. So that's
Yeah.
another reason why she can't put it in the rear half of her property. She'd be in the creek. Okay,
Madam Chair, question to
Yes.
Maureen. Do we have a topo for this lot?
I don't have one on the presentation, no.
Okay. Do you, can you give an educated guess as to what the drop off is from the grade at the garage to the rear of the lot?
You know, I did not walk to the back of the property, so I have no idea.
Okay. It looks to be pretty significant though.
From the video, it does look to be fairly significant, yes.
Yeah.
And the
I
councilman,
think-
go ahead.
I think, Madam Chair, the part of a mitigating factor is that the wall of arborvitae already exists. So, it does block it off from the neighbor's property. And I don't know really where else she would put it. The existing one-car garage is part of the structure of her house. So there's no way to remove that without, completely changing the structure of her house.
Councilman's letter said that he'd heard nothing from any of the neighbors that were, so I'm willing to accept a
A motion?
motion.
Okay. Madam Chair, I think given the support of Councilman Polensek, that the topographical challenges of this lot and the shape of it are really quite challenging. So I don't know, there really isn't any other option for her to site the garage. And she has long-term plans for, possible expansion of her house. So I move that on calendar number 20-164 at 1006 Creekview, since we have support of council and support of city planning, that we approve this variance.
Second.
Call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Barnes?
Barnes, yes.
Ms. Barnes?
She said yes, but it's barely audible.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Calendar 20-164 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank you so much.
Okay, 20-166 at 4816 Franklin Avenue. Jacob Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-166 at 4816 Franklin Avenue. Jacob Murphy, owner, proposes to install a 6-foot tall fence and automatic gate in a B1 two-family residential district. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Tim.
Everyone for this case, raise your right hand. I will read a statement. I'm looking for a response of I do, followed by your name. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, Jacob Murphy.
I do, Donald Pettit.
Okay. Anyone else?
I do, Scott Staley.
Beautiful. Anyone else? It appears not. Let's move forward.
Thank you very much. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been no change in the zoning since 1929. I only found in the records room that in 1923, a permit was issued to erect an addition to a garage on the property. There are no variances on file. And in the Acela system, I found that in 2019, February of 2019, a permit was issued to board up one window. March of 2019, 12 windows were boarded up. And then in May of 2020, a certificate of disclosure was issued stating that the authorized use of the property is single family. Then in September of 2020, there were exterior alterations to install furnace and air conditioning, do rewiring, and to update the bathrooms on the property. And that's all that I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. The legal standard will be judging. Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the fence regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. And I would just remind the board that you do not have the authority to grant number 2, which is approval of Cleveland Landmarks Commission. You don't have the authority to grant a waiver of that approval. If in fact it has been sought and denied, then the appellant would be allowed to appeal to the board on that basis.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, tell us where you're going to, well, do we have a plan where that fence is going to be?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I would like to just point out, Ms. Wagner, that I do have Landmarks approval.
Well, Don Pettit is with us. We'll hear from him. Okay. This plan is so light. How do I get it bigger? I forgot.
Madam Chair, there should be a little vertical bar on the very left side of your monitor, and there's a plus and minus there. And you'll be able to zoom in to the
okay, yeah. Thank you.
and to anyone else who wants to zoom in.
I don't know what a dog-eared fence is, but
It's a wood privacy fence, and that's the term is at the top. It's a dog ear. So instead of it being square, it comes down like that.
okay, fine. 6 foot.
Is it a peekaboo with boards on either side so you can still see through it a bit?
No, it's a privacy fence.
Okay, solid wall.
Yes.
Okay,
I would like to.
Go ahead.
Mr.
I would like to point out that it is a commercial property next door, and being in a landmarks district that I'm trying to, and I've spent significant amounts of dollars in putting the building back into its original format. So I would ask that if there's any concessions for being a commercial property next door, that we try and limit the exposure of what that is from the residential property.
Is this going to be your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what's the square footage inside?
It's like nearly 3,000. It's a big
Okay.
house.
Yeah, it's a big house.
I've spent nearly $300,000 in renovations.
Okay. Don Pettit, let's hear from you. Don, you were
You're-
sworn in?
You're on mute, Don.
Yeah, you're muted, Don. Madam Chair, while he's unmuting, I just wanted to point out that Rick Riccardi said that although it has been approved by the Landmarks Commission, it just isn't showing up in the Acela yet. That's why it was probably added to the adjudication.
Okay.
I think I'm unmuted now, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Don Pettit, Secretary of the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. The commission approved this renovation back in July of 2020. It's a really good project. Staff has reviewed the fencing plan, and we're still awaiting, we haven't approved it in Excel yet because we're still awaiting final details on the gate. But we support the variance based on the commercial nature of the neighboring building to the east. So we support the variance.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. Mr. Murphy, what are you doing with the gate? What's the holdup?
So it's as submitted. The question that the Landmarks had was that if there was going to be a fence either side of the gate, it's not. It's just going to be the steel gate at the front across the driveway, and then it'll be the dog ear fence along the perimeter. So the gate as shown here will be what's installed. And Don, that's what you were waiting for from me. I was going to put a little bit of fence either side because you wanted to make sure if I was that it matched the gate.
Yes. Okay.
Correct. And so it's a manual gate. There's no electrical.
There is electrical.
There is electrical.
yeah, I don't know if I'm going to put the opener on there or not, but I am right now putting the electric opener on it. That I don't think that should hold up anything as far as what this is.
I have no problem with the gate as you show it.
Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. And then someone named Scott was also sworn in?
Yes. So I own the commercial property, and I also own the property at the back of this, along the back side of this. So the fence goes along the commercial property and then across the back as well.
Yes.
And I really love that this project's being done, and I support it. I was just curious as to what the fence material would be and where it was going to be, but I'm pleased with this.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, it's just going to be in lieu of the chain link fence that's there now. So I'll take that chain link fence out, and it'll be on that exact same line. It'll be a wood dog-eared privacy fence. So if you're familiar with the property, on the back side of the garage where you can see where your property goes all the way through till where the two-family is, it'll be the same fence as that, if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, oh yes, I'm very familiar with it, and I think that's great. I know there's a lot of shrubs along there. I'm assuming you're going to pull those out too.
Correct, yeah, and I'll re-landscape all along the back there.
Terrific. Thank you. I'm pleased to see. I'm thrilled that this property's been sitting there for many years, and I'm just thrilled somebody's finally doing something with that.
I used to own it. I was the one that had to foreclose on the previous owner. So yeah, and then I ended up buying my business partner out. So here we are.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to also point out that the fence is far enough back from the sidewalk that there's no visibility issues with the fence blocking visibility of pedestrians coming by. So that's also a positive.
Thank you.
And of course, we support the project as well as with landmarks.
Okay, great.
And this is a great renovation. Really thrilled to see this building brought back.
Thank you.
Any questions, board?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Faith. Miss Faith.
Thank you. I think we have enough information. Just to recap, this is going to be a 6-foot dog-ear fence, not board on board, so it will not have any opacity. It will be solid, and it's going to run the length of the side yard to the commercial building, and on the back of the lot, from the corner of the lot to the garage. The gate is going to be black ornamental. It will have an electric opener, and it is set back enough off the street that we don't have any sightline issues with that. Is that all correct, Mr. Murphy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes, he said yes.
Okay. Mr. Murphy, have you been before us before?
I have a couple of times.
Okay.
I own a fair few properties in Cleveland.
Yeah, I appreciate you staying in order this time. Madam Chair, I believe we can move forward with the motion.
That was kind of rude.
Wow.
That was really rude, Miss Faith. Really rude.
Uh-oh.
Sir?
That was really rude. That was very disrespectful. I wasn't disrespectful to you. Like, have a little bit of decorum.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Disgusting behavior from an official of the city.
So,
Disgusting.
let's just finish the case, please. Let's not let this
Murphy,
away of a good case.
I gave
Disgusting.
you a compliment, sir, and I was about to make your motion, so if we could move forward, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, with a backhanded comment. You're disgusting.
Whoa.
Disgusting.
This is way out of bounds on both parts. Let's just finish the case.
Mr.
Madam
Donovan, would you
Chair?
like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a complaint, a formal complaint against Miss Faith
I will make the
on
motion.
public record.
Excuse me, sir. We're about to make a motion, okay? If you just give me a little time here. Madam Chair, it's been iterated, the issues at our decision-making here in terms of applying for a variance. And they've been very adequately described, I believe. I would like to take that information and put forward the motion that we would allow and grant the variances as requested.
I'll second that. Call the roll.
Ms. Barnes?
Barnes, yes.
Heard that
Sorry, I
one.
can't hear. Were you able to hear her?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Bates?
I'm voting yes for the variances.
Mr. Donovan?
Yep.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Calendar 20-166 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you very much.
Disgusting behaviour.
Calendar 20-137 at 1347 East 185th.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-137 at 1347 East 185th Street. Willie Bonner, owner, proposes to build a 36-foot by 38-foot, 1,368-foot wood frame single-story garage on a 9,250 square foot lot located in an A1 one-family residential district. The owner appeals for strict relief of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Will everyone for this case, please raise your right hand. I will make a statement at the end of which I'm looking for a response that says, I do, with your name. Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your name?
I do. Willie Bonner. I do. Councilman Anthony Harrison, Ward 10.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing that, let's move forward.
Thank you very much. History of the property, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. In the records room, I found a permit was issued in 1927 to erect a two-story dwelling and garage. 1950, a permit was issued to enclose part of the porch. 1957, a permit was issued to convert from one-family dwelling to two-family. There are no variances on file. And in 2004, I found there was a violation issued to the property regarding exterior maintenance. And that's all that I have.
Thank you very much. The legal standard, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting an area variance from the accessory building regulation of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land or buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. Mr. Bonner, tell us exactly what you'd like to do.
I'd like to erase garage to the fact of me being employed in several services I like to play and keep in the yard, you know, and that's my whole purpose.
Well, like what? What, like what? Are you going to
I have
put in?
service vans. I have as cargo that I need to put away.
Oh,
And to tear the old garage, it's in pretty bad shape.
are you going to keep that car parked alongside the house?
And that's for me having the garage that I, suggest so I can put it away.
So everything will be in the garage.
Yeah.
Councilman Hairston, are you with us?
I am, Madam Chairwoman. I had to chuckle a little bit at that ask whether the car would be in the in the garage, because I said the same thing when I rolled past. But absolutely. So Mr. Bonner is a longtime active member in our community. The street is a really well maintained street when you drive down. Mr. Bonner, I believe, building this garage will serve not only a good purpose for him, but for the neighborhood. It'll allow him to store away the vehicles and the other equipment that he has there. As you see the lot, he has the room to put the garage there for sure. And again, this wouldn't be out of line with any other developments or any other properties that sits along that corridor. In fact, we just did a recent demo behind the church. There's going to be a nice green space, which would be a nice entrance to the street where Mr. Bonder is. And I asked the board and yourself for support.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate you being with us.
Absolutely.
Does this change any of our, let me say, questions, given the fact that it has a business purpose? Mr. Riccardi? Nobody?
Well,
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Riccardi would have to type it, so it might take a second.
Madam Chair, we could ask the appellant if he is conducting business out of his home, if he's receiving customers and such.
Mr. Riccardi asked to repeat the question. He stepped away from his computer.
Well, the testimony given is that the garage would be used to store service vehicles for a business that the owner of the property conducts. My question is, was that taken into consideration in terms of the review by the building and housing? Is there anything else that would need to be covered if not? By the way, I'm trying to look out for the owner here, because I'm assuming, for one thing, you want to make sure you have the proper insurance so that, anything, God forbid, ever happens, you're covered by your insurance.
Mr. Riccardi typed that no, it was not detailed or applied for, just the garage size.
Is it something that has to be taken into consideration, is what I'm asking? Given that it's come out now through testimony, we know that oftentimes people are going to describe what they want to have done here, and I understand why that would be a garage. My question is, given the purpose of the garage, do we need to include that language in any kind of a variance approval we're about to give?
Again, we'll
Mr.
have to wait.
Bomber, are you going to be holding any kind of service out of that garage? Is it just?
No, ma'am. What I do service work at people's homes. No one comes in my house.
There's nothing else in that garage except those trucks and the car?
That's correct, ma'am. That's it.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Yes, Councilman.
Trust and believe that, if there were folks in and out of the yard, a business running all over the grass in the sidewalks, that I would have received a call, or I'm one of the ones who are actively driving, walking around the neighborhood. So trust me, I would have been aware. It would have very much had a problem with Mr. Bonner's request if that in fact was the case, that he intends to have folks in and out of the property for the yard. And even with the work that he does now in the limited space that he has, he keeps it very well maintained along that area. His neighbors I've not received not one complaint from the neighbors in the time that he's been there over the years.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just so that I'm not misunderstood here, I'm trying to say that's an example of a business in a neighborhood causing a disruption that the councilman just described. What I was saying was, God forbid, let's say somebody puts a fire, the garage goes up in flames, the service vehicles inside are damaged. You've got to now go to your insurance company. Your insurance company may say, was this an allowable use? In other words, do I have to pay you insurance? Because, insurance companies don't like paying insurance usually. So is this an allowable use? When you got a variance here, they didn't say it was for a business. That's the question I'm asking. I'm trying to make sure that we cover CYA, if you will, your business interest here, by making sure that the variance we're going to give you includes language that notes that it is used for a business function.
So, Madam Chair, to Mr. Riccardi, I guess it would be Mr. Riccardi that would make that kind of determination. Mr. Riccardi, does this make a difference now that you are privy to this information? Does it change the adjudication? Or should we, as Mr. Donovan said, include something in there about the fact that the garage will be housing commercial vehicles
Overnight.
overnight?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, Ms. Barnes. Yes, we can hear you.
With all due respect to the board, he's asking to build a garage. What he does after we say yay or nay to that, that's between him and his homeowner's insurance. He can get
Right.
a variance on his insurance, but he's not asking us for insurance purposes. He's asking us to build a garage.
I agree.
And I think we're a little bit out of order with that, including it on his thing. That's between the insurance company and his homeowner's insurance, not our decision with the city.
If I could, I would agree with that board member that is, the insurance company asks those questions when you apply for those policies, and is at their discretion whether they will insure the vehicle or not. And my understanding is this is not solely for him to store the service vehicles, the two that he has, or the whatever one or two that he has, but also for his personal use as well. So this is not simply and strictly for a business purpose. This is, allowing him the size to be able to pull a vehicle of that nature if he has to inside of that garage.
Madam Chair, it does seem to me that if he's not running a business out of the house, this is no different than someone bringing their work truck home and putting it in the garage. That's what it
Right.
seems like to me.
That's what I'm thinking too. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
And by the way, city planning definitely supports this garage.
Okay, thank you very much, Maurice. Okay, I'll
Madam
entertain a
Chair?
motion. Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and make the motion on
Before
calendar
you-
number 20
Madam-
130.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
before you
okay.
do that, Mr. Riccardi did type something in the chat window.
What? I don't, it's gone already. Oh, here we go.
Well, I can read it for you if you want.
Oh, no, that's fine. I got it back. How much are these trucks weigh, Mr. Bonner?
Approximately 8,000 pounds.
Okay.
They're just service cargo vans. There should be 25 3/4 ton vans. Service van.
So it sounds like if they're smaller than 1.5 tons, they're fine. Is that the way I'm reading that?
That's what I'm understanding. Yeah. Okay. I'm happy with that. Also, with the councilman keeping eyes on Mr. Bonner.
Oh, absolutely.
Good. Go ahead, Ms. Faith.
Okay, thanks, Madam Chair. I'm glad we got that clarification. Put some minds to rest, I'm sure. So on calendar number 20-137 at 1347 East 185th Street, given the testimony of city planning, our input from Mr. Riccardi, and the support of Councilman Hairston, who we're pleased to have with us today, we will, I move that we go ahead and approve the variances for this pole barn, and with the understanding that it is, they are work vehicles, much the same as a carpenter parking his work truck in the garage. There will be no business conducted out of the pole barn. So with that, Madam Chair, I move that we approve the variance.
Do I have a second?
I believe Marlene said a second.
Second, okay, fine. Call the roll.
Mr. Donovan,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't hear it. Did he?
Yes, he said yes.
Thank you. Ms. Bates?
Yes.
Ms.
She said
Barnes?
yes.
And Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
That was unanimous.
Calendar 20-137 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay.
All a fine job as usual to the board. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all have a nice.
You have a nice day as well. Thank
Calendar
you.
20-154 at 10011 Clifton Boulevard. Go ahead, Ms. Faith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calendar number 20-154 at 1011 Clifton Boulevard. The Big House Development, Inc. owner proposes to erect an 8,980 square foot, 3-story, 5-dwelling unit building in an A1 one-family residential area. The owner appeals for relief from the strict application of the Cleveland Codified Ordinances as stated in the agenda and the public record.
Thank you very much.
Will everyone
Tim?
for this case? Will everyone for this case please raise their right hand? I will make a statement. The response is, I do with your name. Okay, here we go. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, Donna Brady.
I do, Sean Godwin.
I do,
David
Bergman.
Bowen.
I do, Scott
I
Dimmitt.
do. Did you hear me? I do, Donna Brady.
Yeah, we heard you.
I
All
do,
right.
Catherine Bergman.
Okay, keep going.
I do, Donald Pettit.
Okay, more.
I do.
I'm at Davenport.
Anyone else?
I do, Robert Bergman.
Okay, anyone else?
I do, Sean Godwin.
All right, next. Anyone else?
I do, Sean Godwin.
Okay, anyone else?
I do, Scott Dimmitt.
Go ahead. Scott, go ahead, you were interrupted.
I do, Scott Dimmitt.
Okay, anyone else?
I think the councilman was sworn in, Brian Mooney.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I heard him. Okay.
Who else?
I heard Edward Hewlish. I heard him.
Okay.
Okay.
Track of all this, Maurice?
I'm sorry?
Do you somehow keep track of all this? Anyone else? Last call.
Can you hear me? This is Sean Godwin.
Yes, we heard you.
Gotcha, Sean.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on.
Okay. History of the property, please, Mrs. Kukla.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been no change in the zoning since 1929. This property was placed in a landmark district in 2000. I didn't find very many records in the records room on this property. The Sanborn map in 1912 shows that there were 3 addresses located on this on the map, showing that there were possibly 3 dwellings on this site. And then I found it for the address of 1262 in 1969, a permit was issued to demolish a 2-family dwelling on this site. Madam Chair, you probably remember that there was a variance. There were actually 2 variances requested in 2015 in calendar 15-48 and 15-49. And those identical variances were requested again in calendar 18-47 and 1848. Specifically, those variances were concerning granting single-family houses at the addresses of 1262 West Boulevard and 10011 Clifton Boulevard. And I would like to just give a little bit of detail on this. A variance was granted for both of these to allow for a front setback of 30 feet when 45 feet were requested. There were no conditions on either of these resolutions, Madam Chair. And that's all that I have that's relevant.
Thank you very much. The legal standard, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appellant is requesting a use variance and area variances from the maximum square footage and setback regulations of the zoning code. To obtain the use variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will result in unnecessary hardship, particularly to the property, such that there will be no economically feasible use of the property without the variance, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and that granting the variance will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the area variance, appellant must prove that denying the request will create a practical difficulty not generally shared by other land and buildings in the same district, will deprive the appellant of substantial property rights, and the granting the variances will not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. And I don't have any information about this case as it was added last week while I was on vacation, but I just bring up as a point that the appellant or staff or both needs to address whether the board has the authority to grant the required setback variances. We want the setback variances.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before we begin, I noticed in the write-up that I received, at least the paper version over the weekend, that we're here today because the councilman had proposed and we had granted an extension of a postponement, if you will, for the case, so that there would be adequate time to have interaction with the community.
Yes.
And so now that we're back again, I just, before we begin, I wanted to see, by asking the councilman if he felt that time in between he was able to accomplish what he had asked for. Was there substantial involvement by the community itself in terms of the project?
Sure. If I can speak to that.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Sure. And I'm just going to opine here. I understand with COVID it presents a lot of practical difficulties with notice, and I'm not really blaming anybody. I first became aware of this development, I think about July 29th and 30th, before the first, when they wanted to meet. However, this went through the Clifton Area Design Review, and I never received any notification from them that this was before design review. I did speak to them. They thought Landmarks would notify me, but they never provided any notification at all. This was in design review. And then when this went to Landmarks, I was given 40 hours notice of the first hearing. At 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, they said it would be heard at 9 a.m. on a Thursday. So now with BOZA even, there's difficulties, and I'm not blaming BOZA, but with, nobody's operating normally, and we have to do this virtually, which presents difficulties, and everybody's doing their best. But when I originally got notice of BOZA, which was only a day after I got notice of Landmarks, it was 6 business days. So I was able to rush together. I hand-delivered 32 notices in this community. And we did have a meeting that Thursday at Ed Hulish's house, who lives a few houses away. And I brought masks. We did it outside in a covered pavilion. So everybody wore a mask. We did it outside. David Bowen was present, and he had a PowerPoint presentation with site plan pictures and to answer most of the questions of the neighborhood. There was a remaining question about the setback, and I was able to obtain that answer from Rick Riccardi a couple days later about whether or not a setback variance was needed, or what would the city consider the setback. And then from there, so I asked for a continuance of BOZA, and I asked for, at least about 2 weeks, but it is set for today. But even with BOZA, I got to complain that, on the 19th, when this is heard, I emailed BOZA, and they said they would notify me of the new date. As of last Monday, then I asked, when's the new date? Because I hadn't heard anything. And those indicated that they'd sent an inter-office notification. Well, as of a week after that, last Wednesday, it still hadn't arrived inter-office mail. I mean, so some of these notifications, we have to do better in notifying people and not just dropping an inter-office notification of a meeting, because, you know, the mail service is not operating properly in the city hall because of the limited hours, limited staffing. So I just wanted to express, you know, my unhappiness with the notification process throughout this, which has provided some frustration to the neighbors. But I will say, however, I was able to, we did have a good community meeting, and I delivered the 32 notices, which I covered the area sufficiently. We had a community meeting, we've had shared emails, and then I also went back and delivered 32 more notices to the same residents. And as you can see, everybody had an opportunity, and that was important to me, is there's a lot of voices in this process, and everybody's voice needs to be heard and not felt rushed or not felt pressured. And so everybody did have an opportunity and to send in letters. All those emails or letters were provided to Ms. Kukla, and there's quite a few people here today. So to answer your question, your short question with a long answer, I do believe there was fair notification. The community's had a chance to be aware of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Tim, did that answer your question?
It did, because when you look at the letters, especially those that are positioned against the project, one of the threads that you find throughout those letters is a question of, you know, the ability to understand what the project is, the ability to ask and answer questions, and perhaps offer changes in it that would find compromise solutions. So that's why I was interested as to whether or not they were able to actually have a meeting, get together, if that process had worked at all. And if not, we know it. And if so, yes, it seemed to be just indicated now by the councilman, at least in his judgment, it did seem that it played a fruitful purpose, and they did have some advancement in terms of what the project was. We'll see what happens now when we open it up for the rest.
Okay, thank you very much. Who is the spokesperson for Big House Development?
Madam Chairman, this is Andrew Brickman from Brickhouse Partners. I'm here along with Zach Norton, our architect, Scott Dimmitt, and our project manager, David Bowen. All of us will be participating and answering any questions from any of the board members or any residents.
Okay, thank you very much. Tell us exactly what you'd like to do.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I just wanted to let Mr. Brickman know I can change the slides. We have your PowerPoint presentation that you submitted.
Okay, thank you so much. Why don't we start going through the slide presentation, Madam Chairman, and that'll give us a chance to show you what we'd like to do. You're all familiar with the site at the southwest corner of West Boulevard and Clifton. It's a very prominent location. I live right around the corner in the neighborhood at 95 Lake, another project that I developed in the neighborhood. I also developed a project at 117th and Lake Road. Was chosen by the city after an extensive RFP process to develop that project, which is won 11 HBA awards this past season. So this is a corner that I drive by all the time since it's in my neighborhood. To me, it looks like the missing tooth in a smile. It's extremely prominent. It's the gateway to the west side of Cleveland. And no one's been able to figure out, in spite of numerous attempts, how to develop the corner. It's not a very large project with only 5 townhomes. The economies to scale that you would normally get in a development do not exist. It's probably not a project that Brickhouse would have taken on, other than I feel like it's I wanted to see one of our projects there versus a lesser project. I think what was proposed previously was a duplex that I think was far less desirable, and I think most of the comments that I've received from peoples like Chris Ronayne and Fred Collier, amongst others, is that they're emphatically in favor of this new design and think that it works quite well within the context of the neighborhood. So these are just a couple of the other homes that are in the neighborhood. You see a variety of multifamily, duplexes, triplexes, and then there's also some apartment buildings in the area amongst the single family homes that are there. This particular image I'd like to make a reference to is on the north east corner, caddy corner of our project. It's a triple, I believe, and it was sort of the inspiration for the big house concept that we have on the corner of the property that we own on the southwest corner. As you can see, there are some similarities. We have been through a variety of different iterations with the Clifton West Development Group, and these reflect their input and their suggested changes, as well as Landmark's input and their suggested changes. Both who approved the project. I believe Mr. Pettit's here and can speak to that. I don't know if Jessica Trevisano is here, but could speak to that. But they approved it unanimously, and we were glad to get their support. You have a combination of 2 and 3 stories, which is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. The architecture, I think, is tasteful and will stand the test of time. And we also are able to accomplish bringing in 5 new individuals or 5 new families to the city of Cleveland. And with the current trends in population, this is, I believe, an objective of the city planning's department, and that is to increase density within the city limits. The architecture, again, will be a combination of stucco and wood and cement board. A brick fireplace accents it, and we've got several different porches. The courtyard in the rear serves the parking and is extremely generous in terms of turning radiuses, and will allow for all of the residents to have a 2-car attached garage. Most of our projects, as it turns out, the demographics are that about 65% of the residents who live there are single, which provides additional parking spaces as well. I know that there are a couple of variances that we're asking for. One of them had to do with the area, which we've now reduced the size of the building, so I don't believe we need that variance any longer. And that can be confirmed by Mr. Riccardi or Ms. Kukla or by yourself. The other variances had to do with the multiple unit in the project and the setback, but I'm not so sure that we need the setback variance, but there's a precedent and it's been granted twice before for 2 other projects that never were able to go forward because of a variety of different reasons, probably economic. These are some of the materials that we plan to use. Not the red brick. Red brick won't be used. It'll be more of a gray brick. And our architect can answer any specific questions about that. But we're extremely excited about the response we've had from the community. Naturally, There'll be some voices, I'm sure, who, for whatever reason, are opposed. But the reality is that Cleveland and Northeast Ohio needs this type of an investment. The margins on a project like this are very, very slim to begin with. You're talking about an expensive building. Lumber prices are up 50%. The property was expensive. And if it wasn't a project of love in my neighborhood, we probably wouldn't have pursued it. But we think this type of a big house could fill in a lot of other infill housing and empty lots within the city and help bring new residences to support the local merchants, as well as to support the rest of the community.
What is the setback that is proposed?
30 feet.
It is, okay, hold on a minute. I see
Let me get back to, there you go.
Okay, you're too fast for me, Maurice. Okay, hold on. I'm going to zoom in on my thing and look at it. Okay, 30 foot. And what's the setback? It's also 30 foot on the West Boulevard side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, let's hear from everybody else.
Madam Chairwoman,
Yes.
could we just have him go down and address each of the variances before we? let him
Perfect.
go? Yeah.
Yes. Mr. Brickman,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I put two words together and I got Brickhouse. Hello.
Yeah, that's all right. I've been called much worse, and I'm sure you understand. Do you want to go back to the page that listed the different variances, and I can address each one of them?
Sure, one sec. There we go.
Okay. So the first one. Let's see.
Well, my write-up says 5 dwelling units and you reduced it to 4. Is that my understanding?
No, Madam Chairman, it's 5. I think Mr. Riccardi just made a typing error or something.
Madam Chair, yeah, that was my mistake. I have an older version of the adjudication. It is in fact 5 units. Sorry.
Okay.
The square footage, right?
Yeah, the square footage has been reduced, and now we no longer require a variance.
So number 2, okay.
And I'm not sure about the interpretation of number 3, but I'm not sure if we need the variance for the setbacks. But again, there's a precedent for already granting it, as Secretary Kukla read earlier. It's been granted twice before to 2 prior applicants.
So your testimony would be that you're addressing number 2 and 3, and number 1 is an interpretive process, or it's one that would have to call for a variance, I mean?
Number 1 would call for a variance, yes, sir. But again, it's consistent with the rest of the homes within the neighborhood. Right across the street, there are 2 triplexes that essentially share one driveway, which we would have 5 units, and our neighboring property to the south sharing 1 property. We're on a significantly larger lot than those 2 triplexes are.
Okay. All right, that's what I asked for.
Okay.
And the Landmarks Commission, Don Pettit's still here?
Yes, he is.
He could probably address the 1.
Thank you, board members. Don Pettit, Secretary of the Landmarks Commission. The commission reviewed this twice, first conceptually and then for final review. On October 22nd, we approved a certificate of appropriateness for the project with several conditions, that they add 4 new oak trees to the site plan, that there is no ephes on the Clifton or West Boulevard elevations, and that they submit alternate facade materials to staff for review, and with the recommendation that they explore expanding the easement to allow for widening the shared driveway. The commission strongly supports the project, and we have no objection to the required variances.
Thank you, Donald. Any questions for Donald?
Was that a unanimous vote?
It was.
Okay.
Thank you, Donald. Okay. Tim, did you have another question? No? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is Liz Kukla. Regarding the front setback, just a quick clarification. I believe that the front setback is still needed, but the previous variances give you the right to grant these variances. So it'll still need to stay on the resolution. But again, as Lori Wagner stated, there is a restriction in your in the code section regarding the Board of Zoning Appeals that limits the board's ability to grant front yard setbacks, and only in special circumstances are you allowed to do that. And so in this case, it is our understanding that there are circumstances that allows you to grant the front yard setback.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Okay. Oh, Director Collier, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Well, let's hear your comments before I call on others.
Yes, please. So I just want the opportunity to speak on this project. This project is a relatively unique project. Unique in the sense in that my 20 years as a planning director and serving on the Landmarks Commission, very difficult to build a new development in a landmarks district and do it the right way. So I want to speak first with respect to the design of this particular proposal, and then talk a little bit about how that has the implications for what we're hearing today as far as the need to come before BZA. As you know, with West Boulevard and Clifton, many of the homes are large, stately homes. And when the developer had shown this to the department, one of the things that, my reaction was, okay, wow, how do you pull this off? Because the way they designed the building was such that picked up on the scale, the architectural details. And when you look at the actual design, it's almost as if the property has been there forever, particularly with respect to the chimney element that you see at the corner. And with that, the Landmarks Commission unanimously approved this project because of the quality of the design and the fact that the designer was able to hit it perfectly with respect to its infusion into this this corner. The other thing I want to point out is that when you look at the various corners, the developments are large scale. They're obviously historic, and there's some multifamily and double type of housing stock here already. From a department standpoint, with this entire corner, there was only one curb cut used, which is something that we appreciate because it continues to promote the walkability of this neighborhood. And you can notice also too that the parking is all in the rear. Now, having said that, it was an amazing job of taking multiple units and masking it and making it look like a single family scenario. And when you look at the lot depths here, this is a square in comparison to the properties that are along Clifton and that are along West Boulevard, which are very deep. So there was a substantially less amount of real estate to deal with. And when you look at how the property sits, we believe that its setback at the 30 feet that's shown here is adequate for this particular corner. and this is a very prominent corner. So I wanted to go on record just noting, and Maurice will talk to you in more detail on behalf of the division, but I wanted to be here personally to commend the development interest on this particular investment and how it was done. Because it's something that, again, I really mean this when I say this, is that it was done really well, particularly in the Landmarks District. And I think that with respect to the variances that are being asked, given the investment that's being made and the consideration for the neighborhood and the design here, we fully support these variances because this is a good product and we believe that it's good for the city of Cleveland.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate your time and your input. Okay. Let's do Adam Davenport has been sworn in.
Thank you. Definitely. I want to reiterate a couple points that I think were touched on by the past few people.
One second, Madam Chair, I forgot. Director Collier needs to be sworn in. I don't know if we can do that retroactively, but we forgot to swear him in.
Yeah, do it now.
Raise your right hand, Fred.
Yes, can you see me?
Do you swear or
Yes.
affirm? Are you there? Is everybody here?
I can hear him.
I'm here.
Okay, Fred, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And also the past testimony that you've just given is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, absolutely. As far as I know it to be.
All right.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting. Just wanted to make sure everything was all legal.
Okay, fine. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate a couple points that I think worth re-mentioning. That this lot has sat vacant for, I think, for over a decade, if I'm not mistaken. And there are clearly some economic reasons why this is, a house in, in a single family nature has not been built here. And I think that's kind of, especially in today's environment, as Mr. Brickman mentioned, with the price of the land, the price of lumber, the economic situation that these older houses were built under is definitely not the same scenario as this current proposal for sure. Another that Director Collier mentioned, and Don as well, is that this project received unanimous support at Landmarks, which is substantial and almost, it almost never happens at that commission. Very noteworthy. Clearly, this is a favored design by the city and a smart proposal for a new project at a very prominent corner of the city. It's the, as you're getting off the Shoreway, it's right here. People commuting daily from Lakewood to Cleveland or vice versa inside Cleveland, see this corner every day. It's vacant. It's been vacant for the past 15 years. And so to fill it in would be, I think, a monumental benefit for the neighborhood and, and certainly, people passing by as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a letter from Donna Brady, which we all had a copy of and had a chance to read over the weekend. But she's also online with, was sworn in with us. Donna?
Yes.
Do you have anything to add from your letter? Because we've all had a copy and we're able to read it at our convenience earlier.
I'm glad. Yes, I do have a few things to say. Number one, I just heard that this is not going to be stucco, that it's going to be some type of brick. Is that correct? It shows stucco in its picture.
Maybe you misunderstood, former councilwoman. It's the chimney is going to be brick. There also might be some brick along the base of the foundation.
All right. I also, none of the neighbors were notified about the landmarks commission meetings. Do you know that? You had 2 of them. Can you hear me?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anybody. There were
Madam-
2. There were
Madam-
2. I'm hearing that there were 2 landmarks commission meetings, and the neighborhood was not notified of any of them. And I believe the councilman was not notified.
That's impossible. Can,
Mm,
Madam
Madam
Chair,
Chair.
may I speak, please? This is Fred Collier, and I'll let Donald Pettit speak.
Yes, Director?
Yes, ma'am. So first and foremost, all of our board and commission meetings, notifications go out to all of city council. That is an impossibility that a city council member is not notified of a landmarks meeting. If there's a desire to have a personal phone call or something of that sort, that may not happen. But as far as notification, there is notification that was sent out to all of our city council member people. That's standard modus operandi with all of our boards and commissions, including BZA. And with respect to community involvement and engagement, I do believe Adam, as well as Mr. Brickman, there was community discussions held or community discussion held around this particular project, if I'm not mistaken here. So the implication that in any way there's a lack of notification in a process that has been in existence for years, where we can show you email notifications and everything that goes out to our councilmatic members whenever there is a board or commission hearing. That's something that we do not do. So Don, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Feel free to do so.
Thank you, Director. I would just add that we also post our agenda on the city planning website. We do not have a code requirement to notify neighbors the way the Board of Zoning Appeals does. We did speak to the councilman the week of our conceptual review, and we were made aware that there would be a community meeting coming up, but we do our best to get our agendas posted online.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Director. Okay, go ahead, Donna.
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a statement that I would like to read. It is, I know you already read my very comprehensive letter, but I do have a statement because I do want to address some of the things that were stated about the history of this property. So if you don't mind, I'd like to give you the history of my last 20 years in working with this property, and I know you're familiar with it. So I thank you all for taking the time to read my comments on each and every one of the code sections that Mr. Brickman is requesting. At the request of Councilman Brian Mooney, I met with Andrew Brickman, who was at that time the proposed purchaser and developer of the vacant lot at the southwest corner of West Boulevard and Clifton, known as 10011 Clifton. We met on site. At that time, there was a for sale sign on the property. I asked Mr. Brickman if he had a contingency on the purchase for this development, because I was fairly certain that there would be significant opposition to this proposal to build 5 condominiums in our A1 family district. He said he did. I physically showed him where the setback was. I indicated that it was at the body of the homes to the east and west of the proposed development. At this time, he did not have any renderings to provide to me, and he became agitated and started insulting me and the city of Cleveland when I informed him that I believed that a 5-unit condominium development would not be supported by the neighbors. Excuse me. Subsequently, the realtor, Lauren Cromwell of Howard Hanna, called me to request a meeting. We met at the site. She showed me a lovely photoshopped picture that you are looking at, that they used to create a computer-generated rendering that was inserted on the lot. Anyone who is familiar with this location knows that there's absolutely not enough room to construct these enormous homes there. In addition, the photo does not clearly show the setback lines. While it is a very enticing looking development, it is clearly squeezed into the photo to look like it fits the lot. It shows no detail and exceeded the allowable building space. Now they've said that they've reduced that. I also showed Ms. Cromwell the setback and how all of the buildings I believed would not fit and are clearly an overuse of this property. She was clearly just interested in a sale. Councilman Mooney requested a postponement of the first BOZA hearing scheduled for October 19th in order to have a community meeting. Because of the coronavirus, as you know, and weather conditions, it was raining that night. A community meeting was held on Thursday, October 15th at the residence of Ed Hulish, who has a large outdoor covered deck where we could meet. Unfortunately, neither the developer nor the architect were present. David Bowen, the contractor, attended. He had no renderings. He only had a site plan. Mr. Bowen could not answer any questions except to confirm that the structure would be in the setback in front of the homes on Clifton and West Boulevard, in addition to the request for the 5 condominium units. To my amazement, it's my understanding that Councilman Mooney was not even informed that there had previously been a design review meeting. Why is that? I do not know what gave Mr. Brinkman the thumbs up on this project, but he went ahead then and purchased the property without being given approval of the City of Cleveland's Department of Building and Housing. Apparently, he got Landmarks Commission, which, again, we were never notified of and didn't have any idea was happening, or the Board of Zoning Appeals, and input from the adjacent homeowner occupants. I don't understand this. I am deeply concerned. As you may know, there have been 2 previous proposals to build single building structure homes with 2 residences on this site. Both had dual addresses. One was the address 1262 West Boulevard, facing West Boulevard, and the other 10011 Clifton. And that would be consistent with the homes on the north, the large white home on the northeast corner of Clifton and West Boulevard, and the southeast corner of Clifton and West Boulevard. So in the first request, the community supported Rosita Cutcut, who worked closely with Westtown Community Development Corporation, myself, and planners to design a home identical in nature to both of the 2 homes I just mentioned. Both were going to have the Clifton and West Boulevard frontages and addresses. Mrs. Cutcut's Clifton Boulevard residence was to be an attached mother-in-law suite. Unfortunately, just before she began construction, her mother passed away and she could not bear the thought of proceeding the project. So she sold the property to the Kearney Group. The Kearney proposal requested 2 variances, one for a 0 lot line in order to fit and construct 1 building with 2 residences on the property, with the same addresses as Miss Cutcut's. And the other variance was for the setback. However, it was proposed to be in line with the existing homes within 100 feet of Clifton and West Boulevard, which is part of what is in the code. The community supported this project because it was not significantly different in scope to the previous proposal, was similar in nature to the other two corners, and conformed to the setback lines of the surrounding structures. Any hardship that Mr. Brinkman perceives to have with this development is self-imposed. It is not inherent in the property, which is a standard, you say corner, I think it's rectangular, corner lot. I gave Mr. Brinkman my time and experience and the benefit of information that he should have addressed before he purchased the property. I do not understand why he went ahead and purchased it, knowing that there was neighbor opposition. Let me be extremely clear here. There's nothing preventing Mr. Brinkman from developing this property except his desire to maximize profits. There's no practical difficulty. I believe that he does not, that he has not proved that this appeal is going to deny him of property rights, prevent any economic viable construction on this property, and it is contrary to the zoning code in its intent and its scope. In addition, this development is proposed at an extremely busy and dangerous intersection. Recently, Joe Paganakis did a story about this intersection after one of my neighbors was hit in the crosswalk on Clifton by a speeding car. My neighbors and I have already experienced a lot of trouble pulling into our driveway safely at this major connector from the Shoreway to I-90 and other neighborhoods. It will add an additional 10 cars with scarce off-street parking. The photo that they are showing you, this is not the one, you'd have to change it to the other one, shows parking in front of this, that's right, shows parking in front of the Clifton side and shows parking in front of the West Boulevard side. There's no parking there. There is a bus stop on the corner. You cannot park there. In addition, we're going to have 10 waste containers lined up on West Boulevard each Wednesday, generally put out on Tuesdays and brought in on Wednesdays or Thursdays by noon. No dumpster is proposed and not required. This is going to cause a significant negative impact in our community. This development is in a historically dedicated parkway, which runs between Edgewater Park and Brookside Park, and is the gateway to the Clifton West Boulevard district. This is an extreme overuse of this property. It is completely contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. To obtain the variance, the appellant has to prove practical difficulty, deprive him of any substantial property rights, and be contrary to the, and not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the zoning code. In addition to, preventing this property from ever being developed, which it does not. Therefore, I implore the Board of Zoning Appeals to deny this request. The neighbors will be more than happy to work with Mr. Brickman to design a building similar to the last two proposals, which will be an asset and an improvement to the neighborhood and provide him with the ability to to develop this property. I understand that everybody likes the pretty picture that is being painted here, but even the 30-foot setback is not is going to be sticking out in front of my home, according to Mr. Bowman, who showed up at the meeting. And the other proposals, as I said, were supported because they were in line with the setback. So, you know, I am adamantly opposed to this as it stands. The 30-foot setback is only part of the setback. The section also says that it should be in line with the setbacks of the homes within 100 feet of this property line, which it is not. And there are other neighbors that want to speak on these issues. And so, you know, I thank you for your time, but I am not interested in the density that this is going to bring to the neighborhood. It is inconsistent with the other properties around it. The people who wrote you letters do not live next door, across the street from this property. And, you know, I'm going to be very, very disappointed if the board would grant this as it stands. And again, I'll be more than happy, and the neighbors will be more than happy to work with him to build something that will be an asset to the community, to the gateway, to the historic district, but not infringe on our property rights.
Thank you, Donna. But there were some neighbors that had been sworn in. I'd like to hear from them.
Thank you.
Who were some of the neighbors?
They're here.
This is Sean Godwin.
Okay, Sean, your address?
I live at 1274 and 1276 West Boulevard.
Okay.
So I'm just a few houses down from us.
Right.
I've lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years. And I have a number of concerns about this project. This is in a landmarks district, and one of the key aspects of the landmarks designation is the open space, you know, the character of the boulevard, which is reliant on the setbacks. And the historic setback for this corner was 45 feet. I believe the developer is proposing 30 feet with substantial porches extending beyond that. And so that's a significant deviation that will intrude into the park-like character of, you know, the boulevard. And if you, you know, one of the key historical aspects of this is that it was the historic entrance to Edgewater Park. And it remains so today. And so that's why, you know, the open space is a key factor in the, you know, landmark designation of this neighborhood. It's not just about the buildings, it's about space as well. And I guess one of the questions I have is whether the landmarks, when they, you know, considered this project, whether they gave consideration to that underlying factor of our designation as a landmarks district.
Madam Chair, this is Lori Wagner. Can I make a point here? I'm just a little concerned that the issue before this board is not the Landmarks Commission decision. That decision was made and could be appealed by any property owner who has a legal interest. But I don't want a record on this case to be a rehash of factors which were more appropriately in front of the Landmarks Commission. So I just ask that the neighbors limit themselves to the zoning issues here.
Well, the Landmarks District's approval of this project is being used to, you know, basically support it, and so it is relevant. one of the most important remedies that the developer is asking for is the setback. I mean, that's a key issue. Changing from 45 feet to 30 feet, that's, in an urban neighborhood, that's a big variance.
Anything else, Sean?
Yeah, in terms of the traffic situation, I guess, again, I don't think the renderings that have been presented really accurately show what the situation is. I mean, you have a shared driveway that's 100 feet from a really major intersection, which, so these cars, increasing from 2 cars to 12 cars with the shared driveway, are going to be backing out into, basically this intersection, which, cars are turning, we have accidents there all the time. I mean, I don't know that there's, anything that, I mean, it seems to me like there should be a traffic study because, I mean, that's, this driveway is very close to that intersection. And there is no, parking, on West Boulevard, until you get about halfway down the block. And then that parking is needed by residents of the neighborhood that are already living there. And so any, kind of guest parking, there's no parking on Clifton for a long ways. In either direction. So, I mean, the parking situation that this is going to create is actually something that should also be considered. And I'm also concerned about the, things like the maintenance of the stucco. I mean, stucco, in this climate is, very prone to mold and mildew. How is that going to be maintained in a 5-unit house? Who's going to be responsible for that? And the other thing is the developer has said that the square footage has been reduced, but we haven't seen any plans that show how, are the plans that we're looking at the actual plans that he's going to build to, or are we looking at old plans?
Well, we'll have to ask Mr. Brickhouse. Brickman. I did it again. Mr. Brickman?
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to point out the reason, what I have on the screen right now is the previous approval. There's been some discussion about what was approved previously, and as you can see it, they also received a 30-foot setback variance on Clifton Boulevard. It's very clear in there. So that development was really not that much different as far as the setback goes, but go ahead.
Thank you. Okay.
That's why I'm displaying that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And about the stucco, that's in front of building standards. That's not something that the Board of Zoning has any control over, Sean. Okay.
Is the situation here one that the cars will have to back out, or is there the ability to turn a car around and drive out when you want to get in?
The courtyard is more than adequate to allow the cars to turn around and come out front first.
If you look at the plan view, I mean, the person that has to pull in all the way to the, I think it's unit, he has them numbered. The garage unit that's under residence number 1, I don't see how that person can possibly turn their car around in that courtyard. They're going to have to back, those cars all the way out. And then the garage that's in under garage 4, again, I mean, just that, that's going to take some fancy driving there.
Councilman Mooney, could you, during this entire process, you made some very accurate and comparable comparisons between this project and the existing conditions on many of the other homes along West Boulevard. Can you share that with the board?
Mm-hmm. Councilman, are you still with us?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got lost in the screen here. No, I just was in looking around the neighborhood. I was just looking for parking, and During there, I was trying to see what type of parking was available. And what he's referencing is that across the street, there is directly across the street from this development, there is 2 triple houses that share a common driveway. So it's not unlike this in that the 2 parcels directly across the street from it, both on 5,500 square foot lots, which is a combined total of about 11,000 square feet. There's 6 units sharing 1 driveway, which is similar to the 5 units here sharing 1 driveway, but a bigger lot.
I don't know that that's accurate. This is Chris Schlenkerman. I live across the street from that.
What's your address, Chris, just so we can place you?
1263 West Boulevard.
Okay, thank you.
It's also known as 9811 Clifton.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, my property is zoned as a duplex. It does have a finished 3rd floor space that is not used full time. And my parking, I know I have a smaller lot, but you know, what everyone's saying here is absolutely true. And with the limited amount of driving in and out my single drive on West Boulevard, I nearly get hit all the time coming in and out of that thing. You know, to me, just, you know, for the record, my biggest concern is the density and why does this have to be 5 units and why does it have to be zoned as a condominium? Are we looking at other alternatives to make this a
Madam Chair, if I may speak, please, Director Collier.
Yes, Director.
So a couple of things that I just want to mention. One, when we talk about our neighborhoods and building our neighborhoods, the advantages that we have is a variety of housing product and housing product types. When you think about a corner like this, which is unique, because again, it's unique in its geography, it's unique in its size with comparison to the other properties. The property has been vacant for a number of years. And we know that the product that's being presented here, there is a lot of market interest. And the fact that this property was leveraged in the way that it was, where you can have multiple units that still appeared as being a part of the existing neighborhood fabric, was a pretty impressive feat. And I think that's part of the reason why the Landmarks Commission supported this project. And you know, the Landmarks Commission is very stringent in many cases with respect to certain developments. Now, when you look at how this property is sited, and you look at the fact that there's 1 curb cut, on this site, what the discontent is. If you look at the illustration that Mr. Rulin showed, that property had 2 curb cuts and it got approved. Don't understand that one. So when I look at this, you know, it's problematic for me. You know, when I see a scenario like this and then a scenario like what's being presented, and then you don't see the questions for that particular proposal. I just think that, you know, from our perspective, and I'm going to say this from a planning perspective and from a neighborhood development perspective, having a variation of housing types and products is key if we want to commit to the long-term sustainability of our neighborhood. And part of the reason why people come and get variances is because we have a code that does not complement modern investment and modern market activity. So we have to account for it. It's part of the reason why we're here today. So I just want to go on record saying that.
Well, then why does it have to be 5 units? That's not being addressed.
Because the development interest who purchased this property brought forth a proposal that they believe would respond to a market. That's the why. Now, as far as our decision as to whether or not we approve it, we have to ensure that it aligns with the values that we've put forth as a city and as a community through our comprehensive plans and through our neighborhood development initiatives. And also that there's community support for it. Now, when we talk about community, let's talk about the broader community. I appreciate those of you who may have shown up today to speak, but there's a lot more people in this neighborhood than just a few. And there's a lot of people who have interest in the diversity of product, but we never get the whole picture. So I want to just be very clear with respect to our support of this. And I don't want to get into any personal debates. We're stating a position and we're stating a posture about an investment that we believe will be additive to the city of Cleveland and additive to this community. And there's others out there who agree wholeheartedly. But I'm stating for the record what our posture is and our position. So I'm not going to get in any personal debates, personal attacks about what our philosophical interest is. That's been made very public.
Well,
I'm
I'm going
to stop speaking and allow for others to talk, but I would appreciate not being attacked for what we believe, because I'm not going to attack anybody for what they believe. Thank you.
Thanks, Director.
There was no attacks intended, but I want to be clear in what I'm stating too is, it looks great. I want to see the corner developed. I've been here for 15 years. It's always been vacant. I knew the structure beforehand. And, yes, I'm in the real estate business as well. I understand that, there is a difference in products out there, but why 5? And there are, I sell real estate. I don't know that the product, I don't know how he's going to price it. I don't know why they're not considering 3 versus 5, which seems to be a lot more in line. I'm familiar with the past products that were put out there. I have my own opinion why they didn't move or why they didn't sell. I mean, I want him to build this. He has a great product, but it's just not quite the right fit. And one of my thoughts is that we were going to be discussing how we could make this into a better result rather than having something forced on the neighbors that live immediately around it.
It's not a forcing. The language matters, and the terminology that's being utilized, forcing and things like that, it's not a forcing of anything.
Well, sir, that's how I feel. I apologize for voicing my opinion.
I'm sorry?
That was just my opinion I was voicing.
I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, for all of you who didn't know, I lived in the neighborhood for 38 years. I moved in 1968. And there were those gigantic houses that were, when you went inside them, because I was inside them before they tore them down, one of those houses had 11 bedrooms, 11 different people living in them. And there was one that was a fire. They had to tear that one down. It was, I don't know, unbelievable.
Maybe that's what we're trying to avoid going back to in some regards.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I want to know the width of that driveway. What if somebody wants to go in and the other guy wants to go, the guy next door wants to go out who's sharing the drive? How is that being handled?
Or guest parking. I don't have guest parking, and I have, I have a 2-car garage and a driveway, which I cannot park in because the city, restricts any driving or parking on the set, other than on the tree lawn, I should say, or on the driveway along the tree lawn. So where are these 5 units going to have guest parking?
I don't have any friends.
It should be noted that also in this neighborhood, there's a number of houses that actually don't have functional driveways because they were built, during the streetcar era. And so those people rely heavily on on-street parking already. And so there's not like we have a surplus of on-street parking in this neighborhood.
Please remember to announce your name before you speak, just for the record.
Sean Godwin.
Okay, Sean, thank you. Was there others that have been sworn in, Maurice, that I have not heard from yet? I want to give them a chance.
This is Catherine Bergman.
Yes, my name yes, ma'am, there are other people.
I'm sorry.
My name is Edward Hewlish.
Oh, yeah, Ed Hewlish, I heard. And who was the young lady before Ed talked?
Catherine Bergman.
Oh, okay. I don't see you, but I hear you. And your address?
Yes,
10125 Clifton Boulevard.
Okay, and your comments?
Yeah, well, I would like to say I haven't heard anybody argue with the design concept at all. And I'm with everybody on how nice the design is. It looks great. If the comments about the materials could be taken seriously, I think that would be great too. I've been on neighborhood committees that discussed other Brickman developments in the neighborhood. We've been a little bit disappointed with some of the results that changed after the proposed developments were presented. But I accept that those developments are here. They are definitely smaller in number than what was proposed. Both developments that he did in the neighborhood were smaller in number than what he proposed. And that's what I would like to see for this corner lot too. I don't think anybody has made a strong case for the density being proposed here. And I'm very concerned. I may be the only person at this intersection with a small child, and I'm concerned about the safety for that intersection, and as well as the added density that actually brings. I'm not confident that the practical realities. We used to live in the corner house across the street, the northwest corner, and the owners did not use the garage for anything but storage. So we did actually have to back out onto the street plenty of times when entering Clifton Boulevard from their driveway. We enter Clifton Boulevard as it is now from our driveway, and it can be somewhat treacherous. When I was on that committee, we learned that over 30,000 cars travel Clifton Boulevard on a daily basis during the high traffic hours. So these are my concerns. I'd like to second all of the concerns voiced by Donna Brady and by Sean Goodwin as well.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to call on Ed Hulish.
Yes, good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson and folks that are in on this call. You know, I think it is time for all of us to change our thinking about the Edgewater area. When I pass through Edgewater Bluffs and see what they're doing down there and in the adjoining areas, that's progress. Now, one of the folks on the call talked about the vacant lot and the aesthetics view to the lake. I don't think that building anything on that lot is going to take away from any aesthetic ideas that the original builders had in mind. As a matter of fact, the apartment building between Clifton Boulevard and Lake Avenue had illegally taken the tree lawn and used it as a parking lot for approximately 20 cars for the last 20 years. I don't see that person talking about that issue. So as far as the parking and the turnaround and who's coming in and out of the driveway, if we go up and down Clifton Boulevard, there are so many apartments with single lane access to their rear parking lots, and it's worked out. I don't see where the difficulty is, to be honest with you. Now, some of the other buildings on Clifton are from 6 to 30 units. A comment was made about, well, we don't want to see another 11-bedroom unit being built. That's not going to happen because you're going to have 5 separate owners, stakeholders in the area. And for anyone to think about, for example, stucco not being maintained in the future, I don't think any time that there's a purchase, you can bring up an opposing view about, well, that person may not maintain their property. Again, I think that's bogus. One of the persons on the call talked about people backing out onto West Boulevard. I know for a fact that there are people that back out of their driveway every day with limited view vehicles, and they've been here over 30 years. I've been here over 33 years. And if that is an issue to them, they should provide a turnaround in the rear of their yard. That unit, 5-unit building project has more than ample room for every car to turn around so they can pull out or they can back out as they wish. Other than that, there's not tenants probably going to be here. And if there are tenants there, these units are in excess of $250,000. I don't think it's going to be the kind of tenants that we would not want in our neighborhood. So that is my thoughts. I welcome this project. I don't think it's going to make the West Boulevard thoroughfare, again, a gateway to the west side that people see every day, thousands going to and from the inner city to 90 to Lakewood, other adjoining neighborhoods. I think it's a time that we go ahead and make sure this project gets approved. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, we have Councilman Mooney and Mr. Davenport with their hands raised.
Okay, we'll do Mr. Davenport first, and then Mr. Councilman Mooney. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you. I do think it's worth noting that this project is not asking for any parking variance whatsoever. The site plan also has only one curb cut off the less traveled road that is West Boulevard. My previous comment was made that there are over 30,000 cars traveling along Clifton Boulevard every day. Adding 10 more cars does not seem like a big, there seems to be some feedback. Not adding 10 more cars to that 30,000 does not seem to be a significant impact.
Excuse me, Mr. Bergman, I just muted your microphone. Please leave it muted. We are hearing feedback from whatever you're doing. Thank you.
And the last point that I'll bring up at the moment is there is parking at certain times of the day on Clifton. It's a bus lane in the mornings in that west to east direction. The 55 is one of the most traveled RTA routes in the entire city. When I lived on 102, I took that bus almost every day downtown. So there is no parking in the mornings, but there is parking in the afternoons and night. That can be seen pretty much any day with people on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you.
We see your hand, Miss Brady. We'll get to you.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I was just acknowledging Miss Brady. She had her hand raised.
Well, I will defer to her.
No. I was just acknowledging that we saw it. Go ahead, Councilman.
Okay. So, with the history of this property, I believe Mr. Chairman Johnson's correct. There was, to my understanding, there was a double house on one of the parcels on Clifton. That was an 11-room boarding house. And then there was another single-family house on West Boulevard with separate addresses. That what was there historically? I may not be exactly sure of the timeline, but I think they've been vacant lots, both of them, due to the fire being turned on for about 20 years. And there's been various proposals over that time that have not gone forward, seeking to build housing. And like I said, I did have a community meeting at Julish's house where I did inform them. I did receive notice of, like I said before, from Landmarks. It was only 40 hours, but they did give me notice. And that the first one was only going to be conceptual, so not a vote. So there was plenty of time for the second hearing. And I did inform the community at that neighborhood meeting of the upcoming date of the Landmarks. They were made aware of that. Anybody that attended that community meeting at Julish's house. So we did have the meeting. It went on for about an hour and a half or so. Like I said, we looked at pictures and the site plan, answered questions. People voiced a lot of opinions. We couldn't get all the answers because the architect for the project was sick and could not make it. But subsequently, I submitted that question about the setback, and I got the answer from Mr. Riccardi and disseminated that to the people. This originally started out in end of July when I was contacted by the builder for this project. And originally, this was a 4-unit project. It was nothing like it is now. It's really evolved and gotten better each time. The first time it was going to be 4 townhouses, similar to what you might see in other areas of Detroit Shoreway or up on Detroit or Lakewood. And because I was aware of the previous efforts, I did contact the former previous councilwoman Brady, and I knew her involvement with this. She was more familiar. And I let the developer know that I'm going to bring her in, and I relied upon a lot of her knowledge for the history of the neighborhood. So we did meet the developer on site. We saw that 4-unit proposal, which is why you see the typo. It originally was 4 units, but it was a townhouse. They were nothing like it is now. It certainly is evolved to the point where it's even evolved since the community meeting with a few different, changes, the reduction in the square footage, so that I believe they don't need the second variance they're asking for, and some suggested changes in things like building materials and using stucco on the exterior. When I walked this notice around the neighborhood originally, a few people, responded that did not come to the community meeting, but I said 13 people came to the community meeting, and a lot of those, the people, responded with emails or whatnot. If you just look in the area in general, and of course, if you go outside of this neighborhood, the response has been very positive, but I have to rely on the people, that live closest, the people across the street, the people next door, in the small radius. And, they voiced their concerns. Mainly it boils down to density. That's what this is. It's an argument of density. But from talking to even the people that objected, this project, went from being 4 townhouses that you would see other areas of Detroit Shoreway, which really would look out of place here. They came up with this design, and I think, you see from every response, it looks beautiful. I mean, it's a nice design, at least on paper. You don't know but it really looks nice. It does incorporate features of the neighborhood. It is much better than the original proposal that was set forth. I've talked to a lot of the neighbors, the developer, several times. In fact, the developers wanted to talk to me more than I wanted to talk to him. I've tried to keep the neighborhood informed so they can at least voice their opinions. And like I said, the major concern here is if this were 4 units, I think you would have complete neighborhood support. In fact, at the neighborhood meeting, that was voiced to me that I should go back to the developer and see if he would go for 4 units as opposed to the 5th. There was a lot of objection to that 5th unit. And I did approach Mr. Brickman, and I said, listen, this concern about the setback and that, I said, but really, this boils down to density. And then if you had 4 units, things can change around. And I think, I don't want to speak for the neighborhood, but that's just my sense from the neighborhood, that they thought it looked beautiful, but they want the 4 units. And, he responded that it wasn't economically feasible. And, how do I know? I don't know the business. I mean, some people might think, whatever number it is, the developer is going to say it's needed to be viable. And it could be true, could not be true. I don't know. I do know that, developers aren't Habitat for Humanity, so they're there to make a profit. So it's, even though I think a lot of people suspect they're just doing this to get extra profits, I don't know the cost of this project. I know this lot. I think it was about $230,000 they paid for it. And Brady did tell them, get a contingency, but I think they went for it anyways and bought it. And it transferred recently for right around $230,000, I think is what I saw. So that's a significant price for a vacant lot. That originally had been in the control of, I believe, Kudell, CDC, Jay Westbrook and others had moved to acquire those parcels for future development. So I do hear and understand the neighbors' concerns about density. As far as parking, I did, this does not merit a traffic study. I know everybody thinks it does. I've talked to the city traffic engineer, and he said it doesn't merit a traffic study because they're used to using an existing curb cut. There's no curb cut being installed except for this one. And that perhaps if it was McDonald's or something, but really when you just add, those cars up for 5 units to it, that the city would not do a traffic study. So I guess people knowing the high traffic in the area, you can use your common sense as to what the impact is to the area, knowing that this is a very busy thoroughway, both Clifton and West Boulevard. And so, I do understand the people living next door. I do understand people across the street. I've shared a lot of emails and phone calls with them. We did try to go to the developer to see if he would reduce it to 4, and he said it wasn't economically feasible. And so, I support these neighbors' concerns and the desire for a 4th unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. You said Donna Brady had her hand up?
Correct.
Yes, thank you. There's a few things. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There's a few things that are concerning me here, and then I have a couple of other issues. In my 20 years as a council person and 6 years on the Board of Zoning Appeals, I have never, ever seen city departments come to the Board of Zoning Appeals and fight so hard for a project. I'm very, very concerned about this. And you are hearing predominantly objections to this project. There is nothing unique about this property that makes it unbuildable. Nothing. Contrary to what I believe Director Collier said, it is not unique. It is a standard lot. Also, I wanted to let you know that Madam Chair, you and I both know about the home that was there that actually I helped Rosita Cutcut have demolished. It had been abandoned and boarded up for years and years and years. Oh, I neglected to say my address was 1272 West Boulevard, and I've owned this house 3 doors from this proposal for 30 years. Just wanted to get that in there. I'm completely astonished by all of this advocacy by people who do not live here and are not going to be affected by it. So whatever they did in Detroit Shoreway, they did in Detroit Shoreway. But this is our neighborhood. This is the corner of our street. And I don't care what anybody else did anywhere else, okay? I only care what's going to go here. It is a nice design. It is too large for the property. Now, I'm sworn in, so I will tell you that I just got a phone call from Maria Tent, who lives directly next door. And, the photograph that we have does really not show where this house is in relation to her house but the plan that we were given at the meeting shows that this building is actually going to be in front of her porch. She is extremely upset. She called me. She can't come. She's at the doctor. I do believe she sent a letter. You should have received a letter from her or her son, Virgil. 10th. Okay. I don't know if you received a letter from Joe Santoso, who lives in the 1261 West Boulevard house. That is the large white house. But I did have a discussion with him. He told me his words were, I am vehemently opposed to this project. Did he send you a letter?
Liz?
Joe sent to Suoso, 1261.
Madam Chair, I see that that Mr. Rulins is flipping through them. The name doesn't sound familiar. I did get an email from Maria Tent this morning, but I'm not sure that we have one from the gentleman that Ms. Brady is speaking about.
Okay, and the other issue that has not been discussed here is that these are 3-story homes. We don't have 3-story homes in the neighborhood. We have 2.5-story homes. You know, this is an overuse, overbuild, money grab. The owner paid too much for the property, and he's trying to make a killing. And it's not going to be I'm not going to sit here and let you and tell you that I'm going to let this happen at my expense, at the enjoyment of my neighborhood. And this is going to set a dangerous precedent. This is an A1 family district. This is not even a 2-family district, which we acknowledge there are 2-family homes there that were built around 1900. This is 2020. We are looking for something different, something that adheres to the zoning code. If you have a problem with the zoning code, then you got to change the zoning code. That's not our problem. The zoning code is there for a reason, and the reason is to protect us neighbors. And this is not happening. This is not happening with the city. I have never, ever seen the city be so adamant about shutting something down neighbors. And I am very, very upset. And the more I sit here, the more upset I'm getting. This is, and we haven't heard anything. Councilman Mooney did tell you that, there is a possibility that the neighborhood might go for what was proposed before, which was a large, in each case, large structure facing both West Boulevard with one address and Clifton with the other address. There's might be a possibility that the neighbors, would be accepting of that same format and possibly, more than 2 units. But I can't speak for the neighborhood, and this whole project would have to be redesigned for that.
Thank you. But I want to hear from Robert Bergman now.
Yes, I want you to hear from Robert Bergman. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brady. Robert?
Yes, thank you very much. Basically, my concerns are around...
You need to state your name and your home address, Robert.
Yes, ma'am. Robert Bergman, 10125 Clifton Boulevard.
Thank you.
Thank you. I heard from Councilman Mooney about the greater good of the neighborhood, and I'd like to note that the majority of people in attendance here from the neighborhood are in the immediate vicinity. I can't speak to other members of the neighborhood, but we're here talking about our concerns. Thank you for providing us that platform. And I'd like to note that as constructed in terms of the good of the community, the primary address on here, which is going to be the larger of the addresses, we were told would retail for somewhere around $700,000. That's hardly conforming to the residences in the community. I do not believe there's been a single family residence between 117th, the whole length of Clifton, that sold for that amount of money in this period of time. So, I appreciate that the developer needs to make some money, but I am very upset with how this has progressed, and it seems to have already been rubber stamped, and that's why we're here voicing our opposition as concerned citizens of the neighborhood about the size and scope of the development. If you look at the parking situation, it's absurd how they jammed 10 parking spaces in the back of that property. I would love to see another development in the city that is close to this sort of density on a similar type lot. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay,
Madam Chairwoman?
yes.
Yes, and I want to continue on with it. You know, just
Wait a minute, who is this?
I'm sorry, this is Fred Collier.
Okay, I'm sorry, Director.
Yes, forgive me. I just want to just say to, everyone that, at the end of the day, this is a democratic process. And our design review processes and BZA processes are some of the most democratic processes that are held at 601 Lakeside. Okay, and I'm really, I don't appreciate, terminology like rubber stamped and language like that. It's insulting, and it's we shouldn't do that to one another. We're here in a public forum voicing our positions on projects and development. I think everyone on the call has a common concern that we want the best for our city and our neighborhoods. But when we use language like that and we degrade ourselves to insults and make statements like that, it just erodes and eats at the democracy of what we do. And I just would appreciate that you don't do that. State your opinion, be passionate about it. But we don't have to use terms like rubber stamps. Nothing is rubber stamp here. We go through processes, rigorous processes with every development project in the city. And I'm not going to sit and listen to anybody say and use language like that. We're not here to fight. We're here to talk about what we believe is valuable for our neighborhoods and what we think is important. And we may not always agree with that. But please don't degrade. Don't do that.
Thank you, Director. But is Mr. Bergman still with us?
Yes, respectfully, I'd like to respond to that, please.
Okay, good.
My issue with this, and those of my neighbors, are the language. Sorry to offend you. The process is offensive in and of itself. And the short period of time we were given to respond to this and how rapidly this has moved through committees without our involvement. So the actions are offensive, if not the words. So I retract the rubber stamp, but would like to highlight how the process has occurred. And our offense is generally directed at that and how the city has managed this in relation to the residents. Thank you.
I fully support what Robert Bergman just said. This is Sean Godwin.
Yes, and it's not the city, this is Fred Collier again, that manages that. You have representation that manages that. So be careful and understand how it works. And this is very important. And I'm not going to sit idle anymore and listen to that type of language, and it's inaccurate.
If you'd like to continue to admonish me, then
you have a very competent council person in Councilman Mooney. Okay, there are procedures in place, and we would welcome you at any time to come down to City Hall so that we can walk through these procedures. Matter of fact, we will come out to the community so you can understand how the process works. We are very devoted to this community.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Tim Donovan here. For those that can remember this far back, as this meeting opened up, I opened it up with a question to the councilman about process, because we had extended a postponement for this case based on his request because he needed more time to try to engage the community. By the way, that is a regular thing that goes on here at the Board of Zoning Appeals. We listened to those requests, and I think if you went and looked and researched our historic records, we grant those requests 99% of the time because we want to invite process, just like the director had mentioned. Now, we live in unusual times here, folks. You all know it. Since March, we have had our hands tied behind our back and we have both legs tied together and we're trying to move forward the best way we can. Now, we're not perfect, and certainly there's going to be opportunities for us to get better. But all that being said, I think the intentions are shared on both sides of those questions. And that is, you know, in the end, we're looking for an answer that's the right answer. And by the way, it's usually that answer is not going to, there's going to be some people that don't like it. And there's going to be some people that do like it. And that's just the way I've been on this board for 10, 15 years. That's just the way that seems to work out. But don't take it personally, whatever you do, because none of it should be personal.
Thank you. Was there anybody else that we've not heard from, Maurice, that was sworn in? I want to make sure everybody's.
I'm sorry, David Bowen would like to speak.
Okay. Mr. Bowen, you're on.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Old.
You're laughing now. So I'm the project manager, and as you know, I live down the street at 10924 Lake Avenue. So I'm on the northeast corner of Lake and 110th Street. I've lived there for, I don't know, 28 years. Before that, I lived on Clifton Boulevard, right across from what used to be the convenient food mart. Anyhow, I'm obviously a proponent. I'm the project manager doing pre-construction for Andrew. I think this is a handsome structure. I think there's other examples where multiple families use the same driveway. Even over on Edgewater, there's 5 homes that use the same driveway right on the corner by the park. And I think it's done purposefully in that way. So people, it really speaks to the pedestrian realm and letting people walk through the neighborhoods more unencumbered. You know, especially right now with COVID and everything, people are walking their dogs a lot more. People have more dogs these days. And I think this is a great solution to this corner, and I'm a proponent for it.
Thank you, David. We've heard from everybody. Is that right?
Wait a minute.
Donna Brady would like to speak again.
Madam Chair.
Yep. I like to
Mr.
speak a
Donovan?
lot. Is Wendy here? She signed in. Wendy Green? Okay, I saw her as a participant. She's down the street, but she did, I think she sent you a letter in opposition to this project. You know, all we have seen was a pretty picture that was photoshopped and dropped in to this lot. We have not seen renderings as we see when we are when we have meetings and we are looking at proposals for developments in our neighborhood. No renderings. You know, the renderings tell us a lot, and they show us specifically, you know, where these buildings are going to go. The way that this photograph is tucked in here, you can't tell that the setback is going to be encroached upon. There's no setback as small on Clifton as the one that I see in this photograph. And I was told by Mr. Bowen, since he's on the line, when I asked him, am I going to look down my street, West Boulevard, and am I going to see, you know, this building in front of my house? And he said, yes. Now, let me tell you, the last 2 proposals were not built because of economic reasons. The first one, Rosita Cutcut, she was building that house specifically for her mother, for a mother-in-law suite. Her mother died. She couldn't bear it, so she sold the property. The second one was not sold for economic purposes. The main owner is either ill or has passed and wanted to sell the property. And of course, he wanted to get as much money as possible. And of course, everybody knows that if you pay as much money for $230,000 for this lot, which is unbelievable that anybody would pay that, that they would have to try to maximize anything that they could squeeze on that property in order to get their money back. Mr. Bowen also told me that that one of those condominiums, one of them on Clifton, was going to be sold for $700,000. You know what? Here's my position, and because I'm getting even less turned on by this project. I like the way the houses look. That is not the issue. They are 3 stories. They are too high. They are in the setback. That is not acceptable to us. They are, what I think should be here is what was proposed and supported by the community before. 2 addresses, 2 homes, or 1 building with 2 homes. The other thing is that, as you know, Madam Chair, because we were involved in this, those were 2 lots that were consolidated. So there's no reason why Mr. Brickman cannot build a home on West Boulevard and a home on Clifton that can conform to the all the sections of the code, setback, be conform to the fact that there are other, 2-family homes in this area. We understand that. And then whatever the third. Oh, he's not going to, there's no reason why he cannot build on this property. We are not denying him his rights to use the property, to, there's no practical difficulty, and he's not being deprived substantial property rights. And granting this will be contrary to the intent and the purpose of the Cleveland zoning code. Now, if Mr. Brickman would like to sit down with us and revisit this in terms of our concerns, then I'm sure all of us would be more than happy to do that, because we do like the look of the property. We are not trying to stop anyone from building there, but this is way too much, and it is very disconcerting to me about how this thing is being railroaded through this process.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Bowen with his hand raised and Mr. Davenport.
Okay, Mr. Bowen first, then Mr. Davenport.
Yeah, Maurice, there is actually a site plan that shows how the setback works with the other properties. And if you go to that, you can see that it's in nature of the rest of the properties on both Clifton Boulevard and West Boulevard.
Well, there is a dotted line there where the driveway entrance is on West Boulevard.
Yeah.
Is there going to be something built in front of that dotted line? That apparently is our setback.
No, that's the buildings behind the dotted line.
So is it in line? So is it in line with the next building, 1264 West Boulevard?
It's behind that even.
And on
because of the curve of the street.
We all know about the curve of the street. We have to suffer with it every day. With the issue of the speeding cars trying to get home as quick as possible, flying through that left arrow on Clifton, heading onto West Boulevard. Now, on the on the Clifton side, now there is a dotted line, and Maria Tent's house is behind that, but your building sticks out significantly in front of her porch and also aligned with the Bergman's house. Is that the body of the building of the proposed development of, I believe it's numbers,
Yeah, you can see the dotted line goes in front of the proposed building. Her building is behind the dotted line. There's another one that's basically on top of the dotted line. The next one's behind the dotted line. The other one touches. And then the next one's actually in front of the dotted line. And then the next three are touching the dotted line. So it maintains the intent of the street.
I don't know about that. The Bergman, Robert Bergman, is that your front porch that is going to be, when you look east, you're going to see this building?
Yes, Robert Bergman here. That is my front porch.
Mm-hmm. And Maria's front porch. So all of you are going to be looking at the side of this building.
Yes.
And the zoning code, I believe, says that, he will need a variance if he is not consistent with the setback of the houses within 100 feet of it. This is not consistent.
Okay.
I believe that variance has been granted twice in the past for two other projects already, with all due respect.
Madam Chair, this is the approval for the previous project, I believe, dated calendar number 18-48. As you can see from the dotted line, it is also a 30-foot setback that was granted back in calendar 18-48.
And I believe that was a porch.
When you were the council person, Miss Brady.
That's right, and that was a porch.
Setback line is a setback line.
Yeah.
Well, it was a porch, not a wall.
Okay. Adam, you had your hand up. Let's hear from you.
Yes, thank you. I think we're getting pretty far away from the discussions at hand. They are not requesting a parking variance. They're not requesting a height variance. And they are not even requesting an area variance for the units, which is a very common request for single family houses building new in the city under our current zoning code. I'm glad that the setback issue or the setback variances were brought up again as granted in previous forms. And then I think it's also, we really need to remember that this lot has been vacant for over a decade, maybe over two. And the fact that, somebody hasn't proposed or financially, gone through with a house before is evident that, that certain developments will not appear. So, I really implore the board to remember that this is still a vacant lot in one of the most prominent intersections in the west side of Cleveland.
Thanks, Adam.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have two questions going around in my head here. One is the constant referral back to the conceptual plan that's shown as a photograph of an architectural structure right on the corner, the structure that we're looking to approve, I believe. Does that illustration, is that true? In other words, is that something that people can expect, as has been mentioned here? And when it's all said and done, when you look over at that corner, we're going to see something like that.
Is Scott with us? He's the architect.
Yes, I am here. Absolutely. We're illustrating a 30-foot setback to the main body of the building in both of these renderings.
And the architecture itself is supposed to be what's being built.
Absolutely.
Okay. Two is the question. There's a question of density here, and it's kind of an interesting one. It's one that I think is going to become more and more prominent in the city of Cleveland. and one that we have faced many, many times here at the Board of Zoning Appeals. And usually when you talk about density, we're talking about a project like this, where the community would probably be coming with these models and saying, why can't you build this? Because instead you're building a 16 unit a new development here on this one little parcel. So to me, density is kind of an interesting question here. What makes density? I know I lived in what was considered a double, I guess, back when I was in college, and it was at 9605 Clifton Boulevard, right next to the Shell station. And there were 3 floors of living units in that structure. So if you just do the simple math there, if you build 2 of those on the slide, you'd have 6 units. So that's, to me, is question. I think the neighborhood has passed, at least if you want to define density as 5 units, it's beyond 5 units a long time ago. And the height difference doesn't matter. You know, you have that, either you're going to keep it an attic or people make it into a living unit. That's just what happens.
It's not been cited for height though, Tim, so.
Well, I know, I'm just trying to say though, that
okay,
in terms of how we define density.
Yeah, you got a good point. All right,
This area is zoned for single family even after those houses were built. So this isn't about what was built before that zoning was put in. It's about the houses that are being built after the zoning is put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Board, any other comments or questions? Now I'll entertain a motion.
This is Sean Godwin. I just wanted to emphasize that I think one of the really critical things here is that setback. And they are asking for a deviation of over 15 feet from the main body of the surrounding structures. The historic setback was a 45-foot in that corner. And so, the 15 feet is significant. Going from 15 to a 30-foot, and then with porches beyond that, is going to really change, the massing on that corner.
That's not accurate.
Madam Chair, I would like to talk about the setback a little bit here.
Let's go back to that.
If you look at the proposed development, you'll see that that property is significantly, or excuse me, let me use the zoning code term, sufficiently less deep than the 2 properties adjacent to it. And so if you were go by the 15% rule for that property, you end up with a setback of about 19 to 20 feet from Clifton Boulevard. They are not asking that. And by the way, the maximum setback that the city requires would be 40 feet. The fact that the one house adjacent to it happens to sit back 45.9 feet, that was their decision to pull it that far back. I don't think it's appropriate to ask this proposed development to also put their development 45 feet back, especially when you look at the 2 sites, you can see that one is significantly less deep than the other. So I think that would be the plus the fact that it has already been granted right here on the previous, previously the board granted a 30-foot yard setback for a very similar style building on Clifton Boulevard. So that's what I feel is the reason that you should be able to grant the setback variance. Thank you.
Can you clarify whether we're talking about the main body of the structures or the porches? Because I think there's been a lot of conflation here between whether we're talking about the line of the porch or the line of the house.
Well, the setback is measured from the building face to the street or to the property line. So regardless of whether you're talking about porches here or not, that piece of property is less deep than the other 2 properties immediately adjacent to it. So you're providing a hardship on that property by making it conform to the same setback variance that the deeper properties have. So that way they're actually losing a portion of the buildable part of their property because they're being held to the same standard for a piece of property that is less deep, which is clearly indicated on this site plan here. There's an entire house behind this property that restricts the amount of the depth and where this building could be built. So we do feel that the one exception in the zoning code provides to the board to approve this variance.
I will accept a motion, please.
I have one more thing to add.
What, Ms.
I
Faith?
just have a couple questions, please. To Maurice, could you clarify to the neighbors, I forget, I don't know who's speaking about the porches, but the porches are not projecting past the front of the structure. Is that correct, Maurice?
You'd have to ask you'd have to ask the architect on that one. I'm not sure.
All right. So to Scott Dimmitt, several questions for you then. Can you explain to the neighbors how the porches are structured and if they're going to project past the front face of the building? I also have a couple of other questions for you. Can you please clarify for the neighbors the size of the vehicle courtyard? I read on the plans it's 30 feet. Could you explain that the standard, the architectural standard for vehicle courtyard dimensions? Can you also speak to the 12-foot dimension of the driveway? And then the other question I have is back to city planning. And can you speak to the 100-foot distance of the curb cut off of the intersection? And if this were to be two separate structures, we'd have two separate curb cuts as was proposed in the plan that apparently people liked before. When there were two homes, there were two curb cuts. So can you speak to that, city planning? So first to add to Mr. Dimmitt, please.
Yes, this is Scott. Currently, the facades of the main part of the building are within the 30-foot setback. We may be a couple of feet inside of that, but we're using most of the envelope. There's 10-foot setbacks on both the west and south property lines. There are extensions of open porch area for access because of the grade change into the setback zone, which is based on our understanding of the zoning code, that's permittable. And it's also something that you see all up and down Clifton Boulevard. Currently, the structure to the south is 29 feet from the property line, which is roughly aligned with the sidewalk edge. So we are, to your questions about the driveway, we are under understanding that there is a shared driveway easement with the Southern House. Brick House is in conversations with them currently to talk about what the eventual final width of the drive is. So in a planning stage, we draw the driveway to address the property that's under control with the understanding that it's in sort of a shared scenario. Brick House is currently speaking to the property owners to the south to work that scenario out. So it's in progress. As far as the courtyard dimensions, when we design a custom home that has double garages on either side of a courtyard, we would use these exact same dimensions. We've also used this courtyard approach for a number of different projects, even tighter than 30 feet 6, which is what is illustrated currently. And so we have not seen any issues in terms of being able to get into these garages, turn around, and drive out as opposed to backing out, which was implied earlier. What was your last question?
Scott, with regard, I'll give you another, I'll restate it for you, but just to put that vehicle courtyard distance into perspective, what's an average space like at a strip mall parking situation? How much space might you have to back up and turn around?
Anywhere from 22 to 24 feet would be the distance of a standard driveway aisle.
And this is 30 feet 6.
This
right?
is 30 feet, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Did that answer all your questions, Faith? Miss Faith?
No.
And I just to the
Porches.
The porches. I wanted to be sure that the porches are not projecting further than the setback of the house, and then the elevation views of the renderings of the house, are those actual renderings that you did on an architectural software, or were they in fact photos that were photoshopped?
They are not photos. They are computer generated models that are built from the plan that you're seeing on the screen in terms of where the faces and the windows and features are located on the site. So there, if there's any photo montaging, it's really just to show the context around it. But in terms of the dimensions from the sidewalks to the faces of the facades, all of those dimensions are correct, and also the projecting porches are shown accurately and to scale.
Thank you, Scott. Now to city planning, could you address the curb cut distance from the intersection, please?
Well, this is an existing curb cut, so we're not adding any curb cuts.
Right. And what would be a required distance for a curb cut from that intersection if it were any other building being built there?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the exact number. Shannon, do you have that number? 15 feet, according to Shannon Leonard.
So it could be as close to the intersection as 15 feet, and this one is 100. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what I'm being told,
Okay.
yes.
And
Great, thank you.
This is Director Collier, just a matter of principle. Whenever you have a corner property, the goal is to keep curb cuts as far away from the corner as possible under any circumstance. And if you see conditions where that exists, a lot of the times it's the legacy of that particular parcel. It's nothing that we support or approve with curb cuts close to a corner. That's just a dangerous scenario. And that's one of the reasons why the proposal was intriguing, because it just leveraged the one curb cut and it maintained the walkable character of the neighborhood, and particularly that corner, because there were obviously concerns raised about the intersection and its the amount of traffic it receives. So by not introducing any new curb cuts, you don't add to that condition.
And I might add, that's a condition that we rarely have, where you've got a new project like this and they're not adding a curb cut. The fact that they've went ahead and done the easement and are sharing the curb cut is a big win.
Thank you.
And thank you. And one more thing, Madam Chair, to Mr. Dimmitt. In the computer generated rendering that we're seeing on the screen now, the front elevation of the Clifton address, the concrete pad that we're seeing in the lower right, that is where the bus shelter typically is. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay. And I believe, do we still have landmarks on? I think, just to recap, I'd like to hear them recap of what they required. I have 4 oak trees, and I think they made some other specifications, just to have it fresh in mind.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Faith. We required the addition of 4 new oak trees to the site, that they not do EIFS on the facades, and that they have to submit alternate facade materials to staff for review, and that they explore expanding the easement to allow for widening the driveway to the south, so that there was some concern that if there's an opportunity to widen that driveway, not the curb cut, but the driveway, that it might ease the turnaround back there, because of the shared condition with the neighbor.
Yes, thank you. But not the curb cut, only the width of the driveway, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And what was the specification about the facade material?
The commission was opposed to EIFS, They wanted a higher quality material. There's a lot of feeling that it should be stucco, but we're willing to work with the applicant about alternate materials, and that's still part of our process. We haven't given final approval yet to anything that was outstanding, but we did not want to see EFS.
And what might other materials be?
It could be, Mr. Brickman mentioned a cementitious product. It could be hardy board. It could be, it could still be stucco. We haven't ruled that out yet, but we're still working through the material process.
Okay. So cementitious product in hardy board, which is also a cement byproduct, which would give more of an appearance of a lap board. That might also be within the possibility for finishes then, correct?
That's correct. And I would just emphasize that our main concern is with the visible frontages. We're more flexible on the non-visible areas of the project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are you ready to make a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Are you ready to make a motion?
Does anyone else on the board have any other comments?
I'm a participant, but I would like to make one short comment. This is Edward Hewlish about stucco in general and a few other comments.
Go ahead, Mr. Hewlish.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chairman Johnson. You know, I want to point out the northeast corner. Let's just call it Joe's house because that's who owns it. That's a stucco house. It's over 100 years old. I think that our concerns about stucco, especially with today's improved building materials, is really a moot point. I don't want to worry about too many garbage cans on garbage day because I think that's not important. I think that the loss of an aesthetic view of a vacant lot is not important. I think that a setback lot line that does not amount to much is not important to this conversation or even germane. Traffic issues, I think, really are non-existent. If you look at the railroad bridge in Detroit on West Boulevard, there are hundreds of units on that street, especially the two 100 suiters immediately adjacent to the railroad tracks. They come in and out of there every day. I don't see the accidents up there. And as far as being an A11 family, listen, there were 3 addresses on there for 100 years. So, and it's really a double lot. So it's not really like it's a single lot. It's something that we're going from a 3, what it used to be, to a 5, that I do not see any impact. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Faith or anybody else on the board wants to make a motion? I'm ready to entertain.
You're muted, Ms. Faith. Oh, there you go.
I was backwards on it. It appears we have a message from Councilman Mooney. Is that correct? And I can't read all of it.
No, Mr. Brickman is asking that we read the letter that I have on screen right now from Chris Roning.
Okay.
Is the letter of support.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Madam Chair, do we have any other comments from the board?
Not that I'm aware of.
Mr. Donovan wants to chime in on anything?
Fitted Hill.
I've chimed.
You've chimed. All right. Madam Chair, this has been an extensive testimony. We've heard from the residents. We've heard from the council people. We've heard from various members of city planning. We've heard from several people on more than one occasion through this. And I've taken rather copious notes through all of it with regard to the objections that have been made by the residents. I think many of those objections have been answered. With regard to the setback, if we go to the plan view, we can look at the setback as it relates to the other houses in the neighborhood, both on Clifton and on West Boulevard. The statement by the project manager and the architect have indicated that the structure is on the site plan, falls within the lines of the other residents, both on Clifton and on West Boulevard. The objection to the exterior finishing material was answered that, according to Mr. Pettit and Landmark, that there's still some discussion as to whether it's going to be stucco or if there's an opportunity to use other cementitious products that might be in keeping with the neighborhood and would still be aesthetically pleasing and also functional to the project. We know now that the porches are not going to project past the front facade of the building. We know that there is, in the vehicle courtyard, there is adequate space for turnaround. The 30 feet, 6 inches exceeds the distance that many might experience when trying to back their car out and turn it around in a parking lot. So it gives the vehicle courtyard room for the vehicles to maneuver. We've heard statement from Mr. Pettit that the Landmarks Commission has the understanding that the owner is in conversation with the property owner to the south of the project with regard to the shared driveway and the possibility of expanding that driveway in width so that there might be better flow of traffic in and out. We understand that the curb cut will remain at 12 feet and that it is a distance of 100 feet off of the intersection of Clifton and West Boulevard, when 15 feet is the required minimum. I think with regard to the height of the building, which isn't even on, many of these objections are not even on the agenda for us to rule on, but the building is a mix of 2.5-story on the Clifton face with 3-story on the West Park, and the other 3-story portion of the building being at the southwest corner, which isn't visible from, which is at the rear of the building and not on either facing street. So I think there's been a number of adequate answers and responses to every single one of the objections. It is unfortunate that given the circumstances with COVID and weather and everything else that's been involved, that there was not more engagement with the councilperson and the community and the builders' representatives and the owners' representatives prior to this. But it seems to me that everyone has had their chance to air their grievances, their objections, and answer any questions today. So with that in mind, Madam Chair, I am going to move that we approve the variances for calendar number 20-154 at 10011 Clifton Boulevard. I would suggest to the residences that they engage with their councilperson and the other commissions that have any further dealings with this property to ensure that any objections they have are heard, and hopefully there can be some adequate opportunities for them to speak. That's my motion, Madam Chair.
I second.
Madam Chair, before you move forward, is there a number of the variances that have now been taken away due to changes in the plans and this issue of the setback, et cetera? I didn't think that as when we went through those 3 or 4, that all of them remain. I think there's only one that really remained, and that was number 1.
We'd like all the variances granted, just in case there's any question marks.
Who's speaking?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Brick.
Who was it? That was Mr.
Andrew
Brickman.
Andrew Brickhouse from Brickman Partners.
The only question I have there, Andrew, is that, in a way, we make arguments during this process, and those arguments that lead to a decision. And I think some of the reason I'm suggesting this is I think those changes help to underpin some of our, maybe me, maybe I'm the only one, but some of our reasons for the vote we're about to vote. And so therefore, by you're arguing on the one hand, well, we don't need that anymore, we corrected that, great. Then at the end, we want to now make a motion based on the testimony, say, well, no, just give us all of them anyway.
So, Mr.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, this is Liz Kukla.
Yes, ma'am.
My estimation is that item number 2 regarding the area district has been, it has been stated by the owner that they will meet the code regarding the area. Item number 4 is the Cleveland Landmarks Commission. We cannot give a variance from that. So the remaining variances are the 5 dwelling units in a single family and the front yard setback issue.
Correct.
Items 1 and 3.
Right, that's what I had on my list here.
And wasn't the setback issue kind of decided based on prior precedents here, that the setback is 30 feet and he's making, and the project is within the 30 feet?
Yes.
Yeah,
that is my
that's
interest.
So that's what led me to think,
Mr. Donovan, I believe, this is Lori Wagner, and I believe the discussion with regard to the prior precedent on the setback was related to whether the board had the authority to grant it or not. So I do believe that the board, to make the record complete, needs to grant the setbacks in this case also.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want an explanation for which ones we'll keep. And I'm sure that the Ms. Faith, who's made the motion, will amend her motion.
Okay.
Ms. Donovan, Ms. Kukla, and Ms. Wagner. Given that that information, let's be clear on the items that we are addressing. We're addressing item number 1, section 337.02, and number 2, section number 355.04. The square footage has been amended, so that is not necessary. Item number 4, number 34102, is review and approval by the Landmarks Commission. That has happened. That is no longer necessary. That leaves item number 3, section 357.06A. So we are voting to approve section number 1 and number 2 on our agenda.
3.
1 and 3.
1 and 3.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I misspoke.
It's been a long morning.
Yeah. Number 1 and number 3 on the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Liz, call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Barnes?
Ms. Barnes.
And your answer?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm having trouble hearing. Mr. Donovan,
Yes.
He said yes.
and Ms.
Yes.
Faith. Ms. Faith?
Yes.
She
Mrs.
said yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I said yes.
Thank you. Calendar number 20-154 is granted. It'll be ratified next week, and we will send you a letter.
Thank you all very much. We're looking forward to moving this exciting project forward through the rest of the approval.
Okay.
Please work well with your neighbors going forward, sir.
You know it.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, this is the corrected old business. 1 through 4 and 9 without objection.
9?
Without objection.
Without objection.
Yeah, we got the lot split has been received, like she said.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
That's it, huh?
Thank you.
Any other business?
Nope.
9.
All right.
Oh, time for lunch.
We are
1
adjourned.
o'clock might have been a new record.
Maurice, are we still on?